apologize to all of you.
Well, you were unmuted as Jennifer.
I apologize to the public. I will be chairing this meeting in the absence of the chair and vice chair. But as soon as the vice chair arrives, I will gladly turn the gavel to him. I'd like to welcome everyone to a workshop of the Children's Services Council of Leon County. And if I could, Holly, are you the one? It's okay. I'd like you to call the roll, please. Look at that. No, go away. Go away. I'm in charge. I got this. Come on, Mr. Vice Chair.
Councilmember O'Brien. Councilmember Marskiller. Here. Councilmember Johnson.
Here.
Judge Hobbs. Superintendent Hannah.
Here.
Commissioner Cummings. Here. Treasurer Mitchell.
Here.
Vice Chair Watts.
Here.
Chairman Jones. You have a quorum. Not that one is needed. Floor is yours.
Mr. Vice Chair, you're chairing this. Okay. Thank you, Tom. We've called the meeting to order. Okay.
Yes, I do need a motion to approve the agenda.
Mr. Chair, I will move the agenda.
Mr. Chair, I second.
Thank you very much. So, all right, and we will move on. Oh, yes, approve by consensus.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Let's see here. So I think next up we have Family Resource Center Implementation Report.
Yes, so today's workshop is to talk about the, it's a draft report because it'll be approved by the council on next Wednesday. But we have, of course, our representative from the FRC here. So this is the time to review the information you've been sent, ask whatever questions you have. In here is also the proposed expansion plan. So CHS will go first. Once we get finished with them, we'll go into our out of school time proposal that staff has prepared for you. So at this time,
Sika, before you get going, just point of clarification. We are going to listen to sort of a status report, where we are, what we've done, and hear of proposals for that we will vote on at the board meeting next week.
right, you will hear the expansion proposal.
Right.
And you've still got another week or so to think about what we discussed today.
Right.
And then you will hear a proposal for out of school time. Got another week or so, we can make any tweaks during that time, but it will not be, action will not be taken until next Wednesday.
Okay.
Correct. So with that, I'll turn it over to Tiffany Martin, Executive Director for Children's Home Society of Florida.
Great. So hello, everyone, or good afternoon, and thank you so much for just allowing us to have an extended period of time to share the work that we have done, and also give you all the opportunity to ask some more specific questions that you may have. So I serve as Executive Director at Children's Home Society. I've been in my role for a little over 2 years. I also played a very integral role, along with Anna Kay, as well as Tara Hormel, who should be joining us online. I saw her earlier. She's
there.
She is there. Hey, Tara. Tara is our SVP of operations. She has a statewide position. So she is joining us virtually because she also has not just helped with getting us to this point, but she still also supports the program from an operations perspective. So she will be sharing a little later on specifically about the budget. All right, so again, this is our implementation report. What you can anticipate is, of course, introductions. We'll take some time to go over the incubator creation and share a little bit more about what's been happening up until this point. We'll share more about what we have been doing to engage the communities, or we can call them neighborhoods. So we refer to our members as neighbors and not just members. We'll also talk a little bit more about service providers, expansion readiness, and what we envision for the future if we're able to continue to move forward with the work that we're doing. All right, so we want to go to the next slide. I'm not sure everyone has had an opportunity to see this, but we did have a community day, the day after the ribbon cutting. And so the community day, was really important because it gave service providers an opportunity to see the work of the Family Resource Center, but it also gave the community and our neighbors an opportunity to see what is this and what might they be able to anticipate once they actually come into the Family Resource Center, seeking services or seeking to learn more about it. So we'll transition to the video.
I have it queued up for us. Maybe. Sound is not coming through.
You have share sound on.
I do, so let me press pause. Sorry, guys.
There we are.
There you are.
The volume up on the.
I don't know. Oh, it should be working, so let me just try it one more time. Sorry, everyone.
No problem.
Share sound, it is on.
And Holly, if it'll help, we can keep going and maybe we can see if we can show it at the end.
Oh, I hear it now.
Oh, I think it's coming out of my computer for some reason. I'll just play it really loud. If that's all right, and we'll see. if it works.
Improvise.
Perfect. Share. Start it over at the beginning.
Offering free access to parenting, a one-stop shop for resources.
Okay, now I just need to make my thing be quiet.
Resources aiming to help families succeed. I'm Kenya Cardone, your Southeast Tallahassee neighborhood reporter, and I'm getting an inside look at the Family Resource Center, now open for neighbors across Leon County.
Sometimes our children struggle with things and we're looking for help, but we don't know where to start.
April Wiley, one of many parents in Leon County who admit that amid the struggles of maintaining a family, it can be hard to get help. And partly to blame is fear.
Fear of the unknown, fear of feeling like you won't be helped, fear of feeling like these organizations don't even exist in your city or in your county.
In hopes of combating that, the Children's Services Council of Leon County partnered with Children's Home Society in opening a family resource center.
A one-stop shop for any needs that a family may have here in our community.
The first of its kind now sits in the Cross Creek community, offering free access to parenting resources, mental health services, a computer lab, and a number of community partners. Saturday, I paid a visit to the center for its opening day, where more than 100 neighbors stopped by to connect with organizations that can help them navigate the hardships that come with having a family.
Finances is a stressor. Health is a stressor, being able to access healthcare services and pay for them.
All things Tiffany Martin of Children's Home Society says can be a barrier to success for families.
So we believe that through the work that we're doing here, that is going to relieve a lot of that stress that's in the family unit. And ultimately, that is going to help that family be, again, healthy, whole, and strong. It's needed in different neighborhoods, in different areas of the city. It would be great.
Southeast Tallahassee won't be the only part of Leon County to reap the benefits. Seeker Rose Green of the Children's Services Council tells me the $4 million project will serve to place a family resource center in other areas of need, such as Fort Braden, Macon, Griffin Heights, and Frenchtown.
The goal is to really have a community where families, children, and youth can access services no matter where they are living here in Leon County.
To know that they are here to help you and your children is awesome.
For now, you can visit this center on Mondays through Fridays from 9 a.m. to 5 p.m., but they tell me they will adjust those hours based on community need. In Southeast Tallahassee, Kenya Cardone, ABC 27.
Right, thank you, Holly. So I just have to express how thankful I am that we are at this moment. It was a very long process to getting the vote and agreement for Children's Home Society to move forward. But again, I'm incredibly grateful that I have the opportunity to serve with this wonderful group of ladies that we can actually now do this work, but also demonstrate the work that we've done up until this point. So I want to transition to the standards of quality. We spent a significant amount of time making sure that we did research and really understood what are the standards of quality. When the opportunity was released from the Children's Service Council, there was heavy emphasis on any proposal that we submit, it must be based on these standards of quality, because we know that these are from the National Center, and these are what are going to not only guide the work that we're doing, but also ensure that we will be successful in providing the services that we have. So those standards of quality are family-centeredness, family strengthening, diversity, equity, and inclusion, community strengthening, as well as evaluation. If you look in your packet, you will see, this is at the back of your packet, you will see this document here. What this document highlights is specifically the family strengthening standard. It does not highlight all of them. So if you do want more information about the other standards, we can certainly talk more in detail about those. But what I especially appreciate about these standards is it's really keeping the focus on what does that family need, and how can we continue to lift the voice of that family and community, and again, ensure that we're not moving faster than that community, faster than those members, faster than the stakeholders that are in that community, but instead that we are doing that work in step with them, and we're doing that together. And we can move to the next slide. So one really important question, how do you know that you're ready for expanding the work that we're doing? So again, we spent a lot of time doing some research to identify an appropriate tool to judge and to measure community readiness. That tool was submitted with our initial proposal. It was a tool that we found out of Colorado. And so you also have this document, again, at the back of your folders. I see some of you already have it pulled out. That's wonderful. And so when we talk about how do we know that we're ready to move forward? How do we know that what we've done here is successful and the data that we have already collected, and we'll go through that a little bit later, but how do we know that the data that we already have is sufficient enough to demonstrate that we are indeed ready to move into a new community? And how do we know that that community is ready to receive our team members to come into their community and integrate ourselves again and do the work not for them, not faster than them, but to do that with them? And so we again look at these, we look at capacity, we look at motivation, resources, support, engagement, as well as awareness to help us to determine, are we moving in the right direction, in the right community, but also really at the right time, so that we are not disrupting the community, but we're really in that community and providing what that community needs. So, next slide, I want to talk a little bit about some challenges and solutions. Number one, staff recruitment. It is better to make a great hire than to make a not so great hire, figure that out later, and then you have to go through that process again. So because this is community work, and because of what we learned through the standards, we know that it is better and it is best and most important to take the time that you need to hire the best staff. So when I look at this group of ladies, I can definitely say that we hired the best staff. I have been with them in the community, I've been with them in meetings, and they are the best staff. Again, not to move beyond a community and its stakeholders, but to be with them in that community, to gain trust, to develop a positive reputation, and to be there consistently so that we can have trust and really continue to build that relationship so we can do good work. So yes, it was a challenge, but what we have for some solutions is we want to implement creative recruitment strategies, including enhanced job postings, making sure that we are doing some target outreach, again, making sure that we get the best people for each community. It was also important in what was released from the Children's Service Council that the staff members that we hired live in the community. And I cannot say how important that is to live in the same place that you serve. That is so important. And again, we've been able to see that with the team members that we do have. And again, I could not have been more proud and more thankful that not just that we chose them, but really that they chose CHS. Next is family engagement. What we want to do is increase outreach efforts needed to promote a more deeper engagement. So as some of you may already know, when you're talking about really being able to integrate yourself into a family unit, one of the main things that requires is trust. And one way to continue to build that trust is people need to see you. People need to know that you are invested in their community, that you are here to stay, that you really care about their family and their family unit, and you're committed to it. And so in order to do that, we need our team members to be in those communities and with those families as consistently as possible, as frequently as possible, again, to build that work, to build that connection between our organization and those stakeholders and community members so that we can continue to do the great work. Another thing we've experienced is a subcontractor coordination. This is a new process to Children's Home Society. Because we have a larger organization, we see that it is a lot more paperwork. However, we've already started that process with some of our partners that we do want to subcontract with. However, we have identified that that process may take a little longer than what we initially anticipated. However, we don't see that that is going to be a challenge with us making sure that we serve the families with what they need. Another part for that is because we are early on in this stage and still collecting information, we don't want to put the cart before the horse. So we know that it is the information that we gather from the community members about what they believe they need based on where they are in their communities. That is going to help inform the work that we're doing. So we want to make sure that we are getting these subcontracts with the right partners, again, also at the right time so that we're not moving faster than the community. And I will turn it over to Kim.
Tiffany, is Kim, can I ask a quick question? Is that okay, Mr. Chair?
Yes, it is quick. On the readiness document, I'm just curious, under 5 and 6, the engagement and the awareness, it really talks about community members. How much do they know about current efforts and their effectiveness in the community? Kim, maybe this is something you answer as well. And how much do community members know about the causes of the problem? I want to make sure I understand what the awareness piece is. I mean, both, but especially the awareness. The causes of the problem. I guess I know what that means, but I don't know what that means.
Yes. Fort Braden is a really good example because that community already has what I would describe as groups that include community leaders. They already convened, nothing related to what we're doing. It's just a part of what they do as a part of their community. So we've gotten connected to those groups and because they have lived in that community for an extended period of time, because they are engaged in all of the activities that happen in that community, we trust that they have a really good understanding on what are some of those social issues and what might be the root cause of those social issues in a way that they can communicate that to us very clearly and that we can dialogue about them in order to create change, again, with them. And the reason I bring that community up is because they have several groups that just convene naturally. They have a Facebook page where they convene naturally and share things with each other in the community. So it's already set up. They have a structure already set up to where they have awareness about their community and they communicate with each other about their community. We're just integrating ourselves or seeking to integrate ourselves into what they already have so that we can learn this information from them. And I hope that answers your question.
It does with Fort Braden. I guess I think my question was more, I think you're right about Fort Braden. It's really, how do you know when they don't know the cause of the problem?
Yes.
And I saw the communities that were listed. how do you know they're ready, you know?
Let me start and then you can finish. A part of it again is that family engagement. So we talked about, we need our team members to be more frequently present in those communities. So a part of that is, I'll give Griffin Heights as a good example. They have a neighborhood association meeting. I went to that meeting for 6 months and never said anything. I just went and listened to everything they had to say because I really wanted to know from your perspective, what are you looking to accomplish? Why do you think this is an issue? And what do you perceive is going to be the solution for whatever you have going on? But after so many meetings, if they're not able as a group to kind of land on anything, again, I think that gives some clarity on maybe they don't have clarity about the cause of this. So when you say, how do we know that they know? I think we need to be present. We got to be present, and we have to be present with the right groups and the right people, listening to what they have to say, and just letting them say whatever they need to say, and just really listening and collecting that information. Then I think if we can do that for long enough, it really gives us really respect that we have the opportunity now to come alongside. Let's talk a little bit more about readiness. Let's talk a little bit more about these challenges that you've been bringing up in your meetings, and let's talk about how we might be able to do something together.
I was gonna say, in the model, community readiness for community change, the other part of that flyer, sorry, on the back, is that 9 stages of community readiness. So when we're looking at each one of these dimensions, we're then looking at what stage they are, from no awareness to denial, vague awareness, as it goes down that chart. And the program, as we're doing that focus group, it kind of outlines, okay, if these are the types of answers that you're getting, this is kind of where you're at, and here's the suggestions to move that group right to the next step. So it's built in that Colorado tool.
So if you don't feel they've met number 6, the cause of the problem, there is an avenue by which you can get them.
Right, absolutely.
That's,
Yep.
you know what, I didn't know how to ask that question, but you stumbled upon it. Thank you.
You're welcome. All right, so thank you, Tiffany, and thank you, council, for your time today. We've made incredible strides since we first opened our doors here in late August. Every moment of this journey, from concept to grand opening, has been fueled by our commitment to serve and to listen and respond to the needs of our families. As much as we've accomplished, we know that we are still far from finished, and we're here today to ensure that our work can continue and also expand our footprint and reach even more families that need us. Slide, please. Family Resource Centers hold a simple but powerful mission to partner with our communities, create safety, security, and opportunities for every family member. Our approach is deeply rooted in community involvement. We don't just provide services, we listen to the voices of those that we serve. Community partner and stakeholder collaborations have been essential in distributing and collecting our neighborhood readiness surveys and soliciting valuable feedback. And partners and stakeholders include health and human service agency leaders, persons with special knowledge of or expertise in child well-being and family strengthening, and educational professionals serving Leon County Public Schools and individual residents within each zip code. To date, we've collected input from 193 families across Leon County. We've held 2 focus groups with parents here at the Cross Creek Family Resource Center to determine the supports community members feel that they need to strengthen their families. And have held several workshops. Our October calendar is jam-packed. I encourage you to check it out. It's usually right out there. And we have successfully exceeded our initial goal for drop-in engagements and are on track to enroll 40 families as members here at Cross Creek by the end of the contract term. Slide. Since the opening, the impact that we've seen on some of these families has been profound, even though it's been a very short time. And I want to share one more very quick news story that featured one of our members that aired earlier this week.
Fingers crossed that the audio works.
Families is open in Leon County, helping people live more independent lives and setting them up for success. Our Stacey Inez went inside that center today, and tonight she's breaking down services being offered and how you can get help.
Well, the director here tells me the Family Resource Center is really a one-stop shop for people to get assistance in a lot of different areas of life for things like job placement or financial resources, for example. Now, I talked to one mother who comes to the center almost every day, and she says it is literally changing her life.
When I walked in here, I was at one of my points that was like, I'm ready to give up.
A feeling of exhaustion with nowhere to turn. Nadia Elias says since coming to the Family Resource Center, she's now on a new path to success.
It makes me feel like almost being home because I haven't had no real support since my mom passed. So it's been a struggle. It's been a real battle for me trying to get myself afloat. So for just to have the support of these ladies here is amazing.
The center is funded through the Children's Services Council of Leon County. The team is helping Elias get back into school, become recertified as a restaurant manager, and they're also working closely with her kids.
I could be here every day, all day, because then I know I got something that somebody's gonna push me to be the best I could ever be in life.
Director Ivory Miller says the goal is to eliminate barriers for people trying to create a self-sufficient life.
And having that one-stop shop aspect and having the neighbors not having to go across town and not having the means to do it. This is why we're here, to be that resource that the neighbors and the memberships need.
Working closely with each person, Miller says you'll get help with things like resume building, job placement, financial assistance, and mental health and wellness.
And that's the reason why I wake up, to just help families meet their needs and really break down those barriers that's needed to reach our goals.
And Elias says she is more motivated than ever to reach her goals.
I'm pretty guaranteed to be successful if I stay on the right foot with them. Take that little step, they're gonna take 50 steps for you. And it's no way you will not be successful in this, only if you give up.
The director tells me they have some longer-term goals as well. Eventually, they want to be able to offer dental and medical services, along with a clothing closet and also a grocery market for people as well. But in the short term, she says they anticipate breaking ground on a new Family Resource Center in the Fort Braden area in January. In Tallahassee, Stacey Inez, WCTV Eyewitness News.
Oh, she got it today. She got it. Got her safe serve. Today. We're so excited for her. Yes. So cool. I didn't realize it was the same person until just a second. Sorry. I'm sorry.
It's coming back up.
I believe you.
Okay.
So our preliminary contract, the focus of that and the objectives were to conduct outreach and readiness in 4 specific neighborhoods: Fort Braden, Griffin Heights, Macon, and Cross Creek, and open the incubator site here and begin service delivery. On page 11 of your packet, you'll find a dashboard report for the month of September, and that encompasses Cross Creek's first month of operations. When we look at what our contract goals were for this time period, they're listed there in the red. Oh, it looks tiny. But of course, first was just to establish this incubator space here at CSC. We have engaged in mandatory coaching and consulting with the National Family Support Network. We have completed readiness assessments for each proposed location. We have established data and reporting protocols for the management of the FRCs in collaboration with CSC. And each of these sections, let me back think if there's one that you're particularly interested in. It's kind of small. I do have the page numbers there. So, and we are ensuring a variety of services that are provided, including contracting with Whole Child Leon for comprehensive childhood screenings and behavioral health. And we are here to propose the next plan of build out and what we can do next. So as trust and awareness continue to build, our numbers are increasing week by week. Our commitment to quality remains unwavering, and we adhere to the highest standards for family support developed by the national network. And these standards guide everything we do, from how we collaborate with families to how we advocate for services, and to ensure that our services are fair, responsive, and accountable. We aim not only to meet families' immediate needs, but also to empower them to take control of their future. Slide. The community and outreach strategy is a vital component of the Cross Creek FRC success. Engagements to date include meeting with local organizations and schools, faith-based groups to build partnerships. As of September 2024, the FRC has established partnerships with more than 15 key organizations. Those are listed on page 41 and 42 of your packet. And our door-to-door engagement and neighborhood assessments have really shown that topping the list for this area in Cross Creek is affordable childcare, mental health services, financial empowerment, and healthcare access. Here at Cross Creek, we have established our first Family and Community Advisory Board. They were formed in August and have been growing since. That board is made up of local community members, key stakeholders, and it plays a critical role in shaping what we're doing because we want to make sure that, as Tiffany said, we are moving alongside the neighborhood and we are looking to them to tell us what needs they have and bridge that gap for them. We have been fully operational since the end of August. We have had a calendar of services that have included literacy workshop, financial literacy workshops. We had with Capital City Bank. We've had all things about health insurance with Florida Blue. Most recently, we had our Let's Talk About Resources night, where it was a taco night here at the Family Resource Center, and parents came, and it was such a great turnout. And so how we are identifying the different levels of members. So we have our drop-ins, and those are who we've just kind of engaged with through various efforts, whether it's out in the community, maybe they just dropped into for one workshop that was interesting, but we're really looking to move those drop-ins into members. And so after they have participated in about 3 services, then we start doing a larger intake and move them over to that member role, where they would actually receive more in-depth services that include the case management and mobility mentoring. So for Cross Creek, they appear to be in about the mid stages of readiness, but like IMED, where it's clear that there's a need for services, but there's also still a need for increased awareness, stronger community support, and greater involvement from local leaders and residents. Through focused outreach and education and engagement efforts, we'll be able to move the community towards a higher readiness level, setting the stage for a successful establishment and operation of the FRC. The following strategies are recommended for the Cross Creek area. And again, implement targeted campaigns to educate parents about the benefit of family resource centers and how they can access and contribute to these resources. Develop a centralized platform or hub where parents can easily find information about available resources and services, making it more convenient to access support. Providing transparent plans and evidence of the effectiveness and stability of the centers to address concerns and build trust, and offer clear guidelines and opportunities for parents to get involved in the development and support of the family resource centers. By focusing on these strategies, we'll be able to gradually build that readiness and enthusiasm needed for the community to embrace and take ownership of their local FRC here at Cross Creek. Slide. Before I go to the next slide, I want you guys to grab that one pager that Tiffany talked about, the readiness one. I talked about it too. It's 2-sided. There you go. That one. Okay. Next slide. So Neighborhood readiness is based on, as we talked about earlier, those 6 dimensions. And then we use those stages of readiness to kind of see where they're at on the dimensions. When you look at the slide here, that map, the wider out or the larger the internal color circle is, the closer they are to being fully ready, going through all of those stages. So you'll see that purple is Fort Braden. The green is here at Cross Creek. The red is 03 or Macon. And then the blue is 04 Griffin Heights. So moving forward, our neighborhood engagement strategy is to prioritize Fort Braden, focus on resource and planning on addressing specific community needs by opening an FRC there, address transportation barriers, leverage existing programs and or expand available transportation services to improve access, expand and enhance services at Cross Creek, build on the incubator success at Cross Creek to increase and reach capacity of the model by adding additional services and space as available, engage with local leaders, strengthening ties with community leaders for the greater support of the FRC model, and continue outreach and education by enhancing efforts to engage and empower families, better connecting them with services and providing essential education. As we stand here at a crossroads, I ask each of you to reflect on the future we can build. And with that, I will turn it over to Tiffany.
All right, thank you. So, you have a question. Thank you so much.
Can I ask a quick question? So I'm just trying to, it's all about the readiness for me. I get the Fort Braden and the chart and whatnot, but you talked about there were 4 areas here at Cross Creek that needed to be addressed. There was childcare, affordable childcare. There was some sort of
resources. Yeah.
So seeing where Cross Creek is sort of number 2 in terms of readiness, and we've got our incubator, but we have to start someplace. If they're not ready, how do they know what their problems are? I mean, I thought that those were tied together, that you know what your problem. That kind of goes back to my original question. And so as I read this, I kept thinking, we've identified 4 problems that this area, people, the families you've met with, the neighbors that you've met with have. If they're not in the ready state, how do we know that those are the 4 areas that need to be met? And I just am saying it more as a caution that we not get cart before a horse.
Right. So with this incubator site, what we have done and was identified in the contract is service areas that we knew that we wanted certain service areas to be covered. Parenting classes, there's like 6 of them, I'm going blank now. So we built the programming to cover those basic core services. And as we're getting more information in from the community, then we will tailor and say, you know what, we didn't have a workshop on this yet. Somebody's asking about it. Let's build that in and then see how well it's attended. And then how people feel about it after the workshop. So right now we're starting with those core, making sure that there's job placement services and mental health and parenting education. And building from there, because it's like a chicken or an egg. At some point, you have to start with something to get the parents excited and here and doing something. And then once they're here, then you can say, and what else? Is kind of how this incubator has popped up, just due to how the contract was kind of set up. Where in other areas, we'll be doing more grassroots, maybe meeting at like a neighborhood church or a community center until that information is so flushed out that we have, okay, now we have a plan to go to move forward as soon as we find a space.
And one final question, I promise. Only because I was part of the negotiation team, the relationship between Whole Child Leon and specifically doing the screenings and the behavioral health assessment piece. You mentioned it in terms of where we are in the process, but do you have a contract signed? Are they providing services already?
Yes.
Okay, I see everybody's head.
Right when we have unity, right?
Yes, I get a little nervous.
Unity is great. So when we talk about service providers and community partners, of course, when we were negotiating and in those very early stages, I spent a lot of time in the community talking to people about what this could be should we be awarded the opportunity to do the work. So what we're doing now is going back to some of those same people and educating them again about what a family resource center is, and talking about what work we'll continue to do together. So some of those meetings the team members and I do together, but again, we are collaborating. You will see a list in your packet on page 6 of organizations that we are referring families to, because they are just existing organizations that openly take those referrals. You'll see some providers on there that are actually come physically here to the building and provide whatever service they provide out of this building. Again, eliminating that barrier of transportation that we know so many families really do face with, really seeking to access services and accessing more than one type of service in one place. So again, we've spent a lot of time also just looking at what service gaps exist, what organizations have capacity to engage in the work that we need them to engage in, but also how, whether that means coming here or being at different places in the community, again, so there is not a barrier for the neighbors to access what they truly need. I'll turn it over to you.
I get the fun part. Well, it's all fun, right? But I feel very honored to be able to talk about the next phase, right? The expansion. And that's what we're coming to you today, to bring 3 areas of expansion that we are looking at as we've been moving forward. And I love this slide, the little pedometer. Really gives you a real-time picture of where we are with the readiness piece. So, we want to enhance services, provision, and outreach to the cross-country community. So we want to take a deeper dive here, continue to do outreach, enhance services, and maybe pivot. Paul, when you're talking about how do we know? We only know what we know right in front of us right now. But in order to pivot to see what does the broader reach, we're ready for that too. Introduce myself. I'm Anna K. Hutchison. Some of you guys know me, but I'm Anna K. Hutchison. I'm the Director of Community Impact. And so I have been in this role now for 8 months. Previously, I was the Director of the Community Partnership School at Sablecom. And so I'm super excited to be here today to talk about some of the great work that we did there and being able to put it into these community resource centers. So sorry about that. Okay. And then number 2, initiate services in the Fort Wayne community. You guys have heard a lot about that today, so we're going to talk about that a little bit. And then 3, we want to continue to advance readiness and continue outreach in the Macon and the Griffin Heights community. Next slide, please. All right, so I don't want to be redundant, and Kim was able to talk a lot about some of the things that we got a ball going on. Oh.
We're just talking about the photos.
Oh, okay. Okay. So, and I don't want to be redundant to talk about some of the stuff because Kim talked about a lot about these 4 areas of focus as we move forward with the Cross Creek community. You'll find a quote from a community member. It's on page 47. And I really, this quote really resonated with me. When asked about if there was interest of a community center in their community, she said, "I don't know what it is, but we could definitely use some help." So this really elevated to me that, it's not just resources that they need, but they need to be aware of how to use the resources that are already currently available in the community. There are so many resources that Leon County has. We are not here to duplicate services. We are not here to reinvent the wheel. We are simply here to show them what the resources are and make connections. We are bridges. We are conduits and bringing community partners that are already doing the really good work and then giving it out to the community as needed. Engagement of local leadership, we talked some about that too. You know, continue to have those deep conversations with community leaders, whether that's HOA, whether that's churches. Fun fact, 32301 has 30 churches. 30 churches. We are currently engaged in conversations with 5 of them right now. And you know, apartment management, PTO, and school administration, and keeping them engaged. Expansion of services, we talked about that too. What really kind of resonated to me in all of the things that we talked about, right? We talked about food disparities and transportation resources and all these barriers. But something that was brought up a couple of times is access to 24-hour care for those who work night shifts. Wow. What a game changer that would be for families that do have to work these night shifts to know that their children are safely taken care of. Such a relief, right? Now, are we the ones going to do that? Probably not. But can we start those conversations? Can we be that person, that trusted source that brings everybody together to talk about this? Can we do the research in communities? Because communities do this. Communities are out there doing this. Can we research and then find out what steps that we need to take to make something like that happen? Heavy lift. This is not overnight. It takes some time and some work and dedication. Community buy-in, always really important in community engagement. You know, we want to make sure we're communicating and having those, like whether it's a newsletter or social media, just really being engaged with all the community, and having that parent and community advisory council, word of mouth, right? And bringing people in. Okay, next slide, please. All right, Fort Braden. Fort Braden. We've heard this so much. It's ready. It's ready. Let me tell you. So when we opened up and we put all of the family and community engagement job postings online, started advertising for them, that community reached out and they had 2 to 3 candidates that they already were flagging to be ready to start work in that area. We were able to hire somebody, Kimmy, right away and got the ball rolling. So it wasn't as easy. We didn't have so much of that happening with the Griffin Heights and with Macon. It did come eventually, and now we have Ashley and Chloe because of that, those referrals. But it did take some time. So expansion in Fort Braden. Fort Braden is off the charts ready. And I love this slide. I really wanted to put this in there. Enthusiasm, definitely there. And they have low resources. Perfect for us to come in and provide support. So, you know, currently we're working with Leon County Administration to utilize an underutilized community center that is already a mile from Fort Braden and adjacent to the library. They're doing renovations right now because it's an old schoolhouse, which was kind of a fun fact I didn't know. And we're working with them on an MOU right now to use it free of charge. In fact, great example of collaborative leadership, right? They're like, we want you to come out there and we want you to utilize it and we want you to take it over. They already have some really awesome programs happening. They have a senior lunch and learn already happening. They have a farmer's market happening once a month right now. Maybe we'll get there more, right? Oh, twice a month. They have Boys and Girls Club. It's already on there. Of course, they're going to be one of our providers as well. So that works naturally fits. And a number of other resources or other programs that are happening right now, but it can do so much more. So we're very, very excited about that. And I do like the word free. That's very good.
Let me ask you, sorry to interrupt your presentation. So let me ask with that example, what your role is with this initiative, this movement, and walk me through like who initiated the MOU process with, that whole scenario? Like, walk me through how that looks like and who owns it and X, Y, and Z.
So when Tiffany was writing the grant, she met with Amanda Hightucker with Leon County and kind of talked about this was the area that we were looking at, wanting to put resources in and the Family Resource Center. And so once she opened that door and with the help of the CSC staff, they were able to connect me directly. And then Kim and I met with Amanda to talk about this possibility. And so from there, it just kind of just morphed into this beautiful relationship and this beautiful leadership opportunity for us to work together.
Is that the not only, are there other MOU or examples that you all have kind of executed along those lines since starting?
For space?
Just in general, just awesome executed MOU. Hey, we got this partner that's going to do X, Y, and Z.
So we are in the process, right? So this is something that's new. So we're building all these policies right now. And so what we're doing is like, they're called provider agreements. So that not like a formal MOU unless they're going to be subcontracting with us. So we do have a couple of those out right now. One is with Healing Hearts, I believe.
Yes. Whole Child Leon.
Whole Child Leon.
Early
Those are the first two that we've been able to engage with early steps and whatnot. So it's a process. We have a ways to go and lots of opportunity to do so.
We have a last question. So there's a list that Tiffany referenced of the different providers that folks may come in here that you all may refer to or whatnot. So you have a whole, do you have a team, a strategy? Is that Kim that owns that, like, hey, we're having talks with these agreements and or MOUs? Like, there's a whole strategy of like, hey, by this certain time, we're looking to have executed, like, yes, we have, because a lot of times you hear people or the council reference how awesome Sable Palm Community Partnership School is. All of the partners, they have X, Y, and Z. So my mind, my vision, and I heard CHS, like, these would be things that are already kind of like, we already got a foot in the game on this because we already have all these partners from that model. So is there like a strategy? Hey, all these 42 providers we have on here that we might refer people to, we actively have a team that is responsible for trying to like really engage and move the needle, even though it may not be in the contract currently, but like we want to exceed and already show that because we have the Sable Palm model.
Yeah. Well, I think that everybody's an opportunity, right? So, I think it's all of our jobs to look to partners that could be possibilities to serve our community. So when I say that, like, for example, yes, we do have connections, some great work that CHS has done already in the community. Does it fit for here? Is it a need here? Not sure. We're still figuring that out. However, the exciting piece for me is once we get past this kind of initial hump, right? So like once we start with this MOU process for here, it just will naturally flow to the other centers. So the work will already, if the need is in those communities. So the work will already be done and it will be more seamless to not take as long as a process to get into the other areas of service.
I'll let you finish. One more. I heard this can't have a MOU without a contract. Where is that?
Well, it's just no, it's not that. It's something that's like so the subcontracting thing, truthfully, kind of blew me away when I first saw this. And this is what the council wanted, like to put money into the contract because there's so many community partners that have money they need to draw down on. So like at Sable Palm, for example, we never paid anybody to come in because people needed to have a place to have their services. They're already getting paid. They needed to go out in front of the community. So, I mean, if it's language that MOUs feels more comfortable for the council to have, we can definitely do that. Partner agreement is just giving them what are their accomplishments, what are their strategic plans, a little less formal structure, not so binding that we're working together collaboratively. So, I mean, I think it's really just language.
I don't know if it's Colorado thing or what, but I would just encourage, it'd be my point of view, that what is successfully working, because again, you go back and watch, you hear everybody say, I know how successful St. Paul Community Partnership School is. Whatever is likely working there, that my understanding is they're not contracts, and you have people who are just wanting to pour into their community, right? And they're doing it willingly, that be explored. That's my point of view.
Yeah. Well, and some of those great partnerships are just coming in for tours and they just want to hear more about it. And then you're open and you're listening, it's like a listening tour. And then you're like, oh, you have this great service. We need you. So, but yeah. The community center is housed, right, a mile from Fort Braden. So starting in January in 2025, we're proposing that staff be located in the community, the Fort Braden community. So during that time, and there's a timeline on page 54, if that helps to follow. But starting, we'll hire staff, we'll establish provider service agreements, build relationships with current programs already established in the center, that I touched on. This is my favorite little heartstring here, but we want to build relationships and or establish a hub at Fort Braden School to offer on-site resources and referrals for parents and build rapport with the community. So we want to come to the families, we want to come to the people. We also do have in the contract a lease agreement or funds to lease a van, because we do know that that is a huge area of need for transportation. And so, we'll have to go to them. And so we're fully prepared to do that. The official grand opening and ribbon cutting, we're hoping for the end of March and the beginning of April.
And okay, when you talked about the county working on the community center, is that the school district or is that Leon County?
Leon County.
Okay. And they're renovating it, so when we went out for 3 pizzas for every one person, night, was that the renovations had not begun yet? Okay, okay.
Yeah.
That's really exciting.
They are doing so many cool things. They're gonna move the basketball courts to the back. They're putting pickleball up front. They have so many cool things happening. I don't even know all of it. And do you want to say what you feel comfortable, what they're doing?
I don't know all of that either, and more so too, not sure about the inside, what that can look like too with Boys and Girls Club, but that's a really huge partnership that could help elevate families and bring them in because they're already coming there to pick up their children. So it's it's still a one-stop shop.
Yeah. But the renovations was, remember. Okay.
Just the outside, what I told you about the basketball courts, parking lot.
So that was the old Fort Braden school. We owned that property, turned it over to the county, and now they're renovating that space. So I was gonna wait until the end, but I think I'm gonna go ahead and be that guy now. I love you guys. Okay, you and I go way back. Can't thank you enough for all the work you did as Children's Services Council. When we approved Children's Home Society opening up this facility and us investing in capital improvements, I thought it was we're gonna try one spot. It's a pilot. It's a pilot, right? We were gonna pilot one spot for an extended period of time, see how it went, and then maybe talk about expansion. Well, the pilot's only been open since August. And it sounds like expansion is already happened. Well, I'm seeing someone in Fort Braden, someone in Macon, someone in other parts of the community. So we have now already left here and started having this conversation about expansion before we've even approved the expansion.
So can I just interject? So part of the initial contract was to do the incubator here, to go ahead and hire the faces, the family and community engagement to go out and do the community readiness assessment in each of the proposed communities. So that is what they're doing, but in those conversations, as they've done those readiness assessments, they've determined where if you approve, the next center would be. But it's all based on your approval.
I remember all of those conversations, readiness piece of it. But this being the incubator of the pilot project, the conversation I think some of us had had individually, and I've had is that, okay, I get the prioritization, I get this, the process by which we're identifying those communities that have been most successful. But I've yet to see this one be successful to the point I'm ready to go out and duplicate it. That's why, so that part's good. We still need more information, in my opinion, about what's going on here. Is this something that is working?
That is absolutely at the discretion of the council. The council approved a contract through December 31st as the incubator. And so if the council's will is to extend that contract, you can absolutely do that. Or if the council's will is to go ahead and expand in the next area, but that first contract was for the incubator space and for the community readiness assessment. And so that is what they.
Through December 31st of 24, and what was it, remind me the dollar figure on that?
609,000.
Yeah, right, not 4 minutes.
Yeah.
No.
That was the total, 16,000.
So the purpose today is just to present the report and then you all digest that.
And just kind of.
1 second. Oh, sorry. I do want to ask really quick, not that I'm rushing you, but how much longer is the presentation? No.
I'm done after, I had like 3 more slides.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Chair. Yeah, I just have a question. Thank you guys for your hard work and your presentation. You've done a lot here. I saw the news media. You guys did a great job on the news, and we're about getting publicity out, letting the public know this center is here, resources are here. But what are the measurables of success that you all have built in? I've heard some success stories, but I think early on we were trying to be innovative, trying to do something different so that we could move the needle for our children, for our families, for our parents. So what are the measurables that we have or that we're working so that the council will know that success is being achieved at this center? And that's what I'd like to see before we move. I mean, we can always renovate buildings and open up other resource centers, but are they successful in addressing the needs that we identified?
Commissioner Cummings, would you be opposed to them finishing the slide and then?
I thought she said.
No, 3 more slides.
Oh, I'm sorry.
No, and then I wrote it down here about the question about measurable success, and then we can.
Not opposed to it.
Okay, no, okay.
I apologize. I thought you said you had
Okay.
finished.
Be on page 57.
Okay.
Okay. Then, and of course, advancing readiness and continuation of outreach in the Macon and Griffin Heights. So we are, right now, those 2 positions, the family and community engagement coordinators, are part-time. So we are proposing in the new contract to have them go full-time to continue to do the work, the deep dive in the community. Both of these graphs, you'll see they're on page 51 too. If you wanted to just kind of check to see on the readiness scale where they lie, they're about 50%. Have a little bit more work to do in getting the engagement and whatnot. So more work, deeper dives, best locations, education to the community, building relationships, building the parent advisory council that will serve these areas. The next slide is a budget overview. You will find that on page 56. And what the continuation. So we do have some unspent There's a justification of the budget in your packet. And so those funds are rollover funds that we would move over to the next contract. Next slide. Oh, and then also the next page exactly was page 56 that talks about the objectives, the proposed objective for the new contract to be measured in September 30th, 2025. Future casting. I forgot about this. So future casting. So I don't want to get ahead of ourselves here because it sounds like there needs to be some discussion, but strategic objectives for 2025 to 28. We talked already about the expansion, readiness, strengthening the existing centers. So we're not going to dive into that, but as we move to existing new centers, it's our plans, if we move forward, that we would come back to you in June 2025 to present a plan on the next implementation of Macon and Griffin Heights to start the work in the September, I guess not September, it was October, and moving forward. It's our plan to identify locations and all of the community partners and advisory council and have that ready to go with a timeline for you on June 2025. And then working collaboratively with other nonprofits, agencies, and to support the work that's already being done in the underserved areas. So the purpose-built community, and they have a resource center that is located at West End. You know, maybe we would work with them as a satellite branch to help bring services. You know, the area over in Fred George and Lake Jackson area, a huge need over there, maybe a possible satellite over there, but just identifying these areas of possibilities and then coming back with recommendations on how you guys might want to move forward. Vision for growth. So this is on page 63. And it talks about how we plan to achieve this with the key components. I'm just going to skip down to my favorite one here. It says visioning and planning with the council. So, you know, coming back together with you, with the council, and setting long-term goals to ensure that the continuation of your strategic plan and what you would like to see for the community and goals are aligned with as we're moving forward. And, you know, providing a detailed roadmap and outlining the next steps in the areas of expansion. And lastly, continuation of enhancing community partners. It's really important that we're continuing to meet with our community partners, check in with them, making sure that their strategic goals are in alignment, how we can support them better, and working with them to build the community up. But not just serving as a hub for resources, but a place to gather so that the community comes together. It's my hope that when neighbors not only talk about what's happening, hey, did you hear what's happening at the Family Resource Center? But they're actually coming and being a part of it. And they're working together to engage and empower and advocate for each other. So they can be the change for the community that needs to happen, that they see the change and they're part of the change working together with them. It's really cool when that happens. And that was it. That's the last slide. In closing, thank you. I feel like we have some questions, so I'm going to invite the rest of us up here.
Okay, so I want to thank you all very much for the presentation. And we're going to get to everyone. I'm quite sure it's going to be a healthy discussion. I wanted to first maybe validate with Sika, make sure that I understand or that we all understand that technically right now we have a council meeting next week. Is that accurate?
Yes.
And is it the intent that next week we will be actually, the council will be voting on extending? Is that what is happening next week? Extending this contract? I mean,
it would be, I think, so let me say this, given the conversation, I think you can decide here what you want it to be. Originally, it was to expand, to open additional centers per their request, but you can make whatever decision you want to make. So if that is extend the current contract, to get more information from this center, you can do that. I did, so I'm gonna finish that question, but I did go back to look at what was in the original ITN. So when we talk about what the outcomes are. So in the program outcomes, there are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 outcomes that were in the original ITN. 80% of family members would complete assessments, 85%, and I can send this out. So when we're talking about the outcomes that you want to see in the model, it's dictated by the statement of work in here. Now, this got augmented a little bit when the council voted to do an incubator model. And so what they are reporting, and I'm not tipping the scale one way or the other, but what they're reporting on are the outcomes that were built into the contract that was approved for this incubator model. And so that's what they're reporting on now. So I just wanted to make that clarification. So the workshop today, it was for them to present, for you to take in that information and then make a decision as to whether you want to, at the council meeting, talk about an expansion plan, or if you feel better going with an extended contract for the incubator. Did I answer your question?
Almost, yes.
Almost,
You
okay.
Well, and just maybe ask more questions. So what is going to be the difference between expansion and extending?
So the extension would be the continued operation of this incubator site. An expansion would be approving in some form the proposal that they brought to you to go ahead and look at opening whatever the next site is they're proposing is ready.
The expansion is the dollar, that's the money proposal that they have in this.
To open up a second center, yes.
Okay, I'm going to regroup and go back to Commissioner Cummings' question. And then
Did I answer your question?
Yeah, I just wanted to set the tone that ultimately it's my understanding that this presentation is to put the council in a position of next council meeting, making a decision on 600,000, the total was 4 million, so on this number amount that they're asking for here.
Of that,
Right,
yes.
so that's. I just
Better
wanna-
inform us.
Better
Right,
inform.
so I just want to set the tone of what questions might, because we may not be in that, but I don't know that.
Right, and keeping in mind that the current contract is not expired until December 31st of this year. And we do have a December meeting. By the way.
And I know you mentioned not tipping the scale, but I mean, these are my questions to ask you on your point of view, because I mean, that was kind of established at the previous that we would have oversight just because.
Right. And that's why that was here. And at some point, I am prepared to do that, but I want to be sure that I'm
Okay.
not.
All right. Go ahead, Commissioner
Yeah,
Cummings.
thank you, Mr. Chair. My question was just basically directed to measurements to determine the impact of the success of this resource center. And when I say impact, direct impact on children, on families, to the point where we as a council would say, yes, we really need to take this model to Fort Bradenton. We need to take it to the Macon community, So that's what I want to hear from you all. Are you maintaining documentation of successes, the numbers we are serving, compared to the money that we have expended under the contract, that type of thing?
Yes, and there is a dashboard for what we have done so far since opening on page 11. And then if you look on page 57, where it talks about outcomes, it mentions the specific tools that we will be using, and we'll be tracking all of that in the SAMUS data system that CSC uses. We've been working with Holly on getting all of that so that as we are moving forward, you'll have those continued reports.
But you haven't started tracking anything now in the SAMUS system?
In the SAMUS system, no, right now we have hard copy files, and we will be transposing those into the system think it's later this month.
We're building that.
Yeah, and you guys are doing a great job. Okay, I'm looking, and I had looked on page 11.
And that was just just that first month from late August to September 30th.
Okay, so we don't have anything from August to now October. But it's likely to be, the numbers are likely to be more than.
Correct.
What's here.
Right, yeah, they're growing every week.
Okay. So my thing is, if they've grown from what we have here, and we're making a decision about expansion, I think we need those enhanced numbers. Because the amount of money that we have spent on this center, in my opinion, doesn't substantiate the numbers that we show we have served. And in my opinion, I'm not sure that I would be inclined to say, let's expand. Even to Fort Braden or to any other locations right now until we can show the duplication is successful in this addressing the target population. You know, our children and families and that type of thing.
I think, I appreciate your feedback. I think one thing to consider is this site was mandated that we start here. So if we started in a different community, these numbers would actually be different based on the data that we already have. Because the data suggests that there are higher level of needs in a separate community. And it also suggests that different communities are more ready than this community. So let's say if we, based on the data that we have now, if we were doing this work somewhere else, this data for what we've accomplished, it would be different because the community has a different readiness than this one does. So I do understand your train of thought. I think it's difficult to compare what is done here solely on these numbers for, is it, I guess, for a lack of a better word, is it a worthy investment to go to Fort Braden? Because we could go there and in 3 months, we could accomplish way more than what we've done here, just based on the data that we.
So you said you recognize more of a need in some of the other areas, and I don't understand why you say it was mandated that the incubator be here.
Yes.
We did mandate that.
We mandated that in the RFP?
Yeah. Because running in the facility.
I didn't see that
Yeah,
mandate.
it wasn't in the.
For response.
It
Maybe in the contract that we did. With
It
them,
came out in the
partnership.
negotiation.
The partnership.
We wanted that to be.
Partnership, okay.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you
Go ahead.
for bringing that up.
So just as kind of a follow-on, I'm gonna step back as more of a new council member on the block, but the presumption that this is the right physical site is coming into focus for me because I'm not sure. I mean, when you look at the success of Sable Palms as a community partnership school, if you look at what the guidelines show as site selection and the readiness assessment that got done separately for Fort Braden, and you look at what some of the readiness metrics are that we're seeing here, if I was consulting on this deal, I'm not quite ready to say it with facts to support it, but I would say maybe we selected the wrong site pilot. And I'm not sure because of the physical location, the accessibility of this physical site, that putting more money into it is going to get a different outcome. Right now, if you were looking at the model, which I applaud, which is incubator pilot, get enough encounter data where you can make an informed look over your shoulder on what you did. We're making an investment decision on a pretty thin number of encounters with family members here. And I'm not, and there were some startup delays, I get that, but we're talking about making an investment decision higher up in the 6 digits with very limited accounting or encounter data from our pilot sites. So the first thing I'm all eyes on is, are we at the right site for a pilot? You know, certainly I'd like to see a more formalization of the core partners that are going to be providing services so that when we go into another location, that we're overlaying core partnerships that are all ready to go. I haven't even begun to ask or think through the questions of why we would contract and pay people to do things that they're already being paid through for other sources versus the model at the community partnership school. And then just a little bit of follow on to Commissioner Cummings is, I think the data collection tool for this needs to be really thought out. Because we can do a soft referral out, but we don't have that closed loop back to know if I referred them to X, Y, or Z, what services are they getting? And are we, meeting a need that they came to us to help fill? So I would say that I didn't see Sunshine Health on the partner list, but in the latest Medicaid managed care contract that was let, Sunshine is the managing Medicaid managed care entity for this area. That procurement required them to have a closed loop referral system in it. So I don't know if there's either leveraging 211 or something that Sunshine Health has. But going down the road for very long with a paper-based data collection system is gonna and I know the plan was to drop it into SAMUS, but it still doesn't allow you to get feedback from those partners that we should be a referral agency on this. And
There's a process to do provider satisfaction surveys as well as the parent satisfaction surveys through the national model.
so I know you're doing the things that you were mandated. So this isn't a criticism of where you are, what you've done thus far. It's just, I'm like, whoa, we've got very thin encounter data. I'm not sure pouring more money in this side is great, the right direction. I'm just not convinced yet. Because of the importance of the site selection and the whole readiness assessment before you make the investments or significant investment.
Come back to that too. Superintendent.
I think Mr. Mitchell was saying.
Go ahead.
May I ask a question? Follow up for you? I hear you say that you're not sure pouring more money into this side is a good investment. Can you talk more about?
I just don't know what else you would do with those monies that would get the traffic that I think we need to be able to make an assessment on the expansion side. It's not saying that the model is wrong. I'm just not convinced that this physical site, its accessibility, its location, when you look at the community partnership school, that it's Sable Palm, the kids are there. So it's built around where the kids already are. This is a little bit of an oasis and a little bit more difficult to access. It sounds like where you've identified out at Fort Braden has more characteristics of the accessibility and more acceptance by the community members out there. This one's just a hard one. It's hard enough to drive in here, but if you don't have a car, there isn't a lot of accessibility on St. Augustine Road.
So if you go to page 56 to the budget request, the $345,000 credit at the bottom, is that carry forward money from the 600,000 of the original investment?
It's a combination.
Well, 10,000 of it is philanthropy dollars, but yeah.
Most of it is?
Yeah, $10,000 is philanthropy dollars that we're fundraising for, but yes.
Okay, so when I do this math, if I add all of that up without the $345,000 credits, $1.126 million. That's for 9 months from January 1 to September 30th. So if you annualize it, it would be $1.5 million for 2 sites, and we're proposing 4 sites. So if you double that, now we're over $3 million annually that would be committed to 4 family resource centers. Am I reading that correctly?
I think that there's also startup costs with each of the first ones, so then once they're set up, then the following year would be a little different. But
Yeah, and the Tara's here, yeah.
Oh, sorry.
The answer.
We've got Tara, was like,
Yes, hello, sorry, and I do apologize for not being there in person. Our state guest, Milton, derailed my travel plans this week. So to address your question regarding the amount of dollars per center, in each center budget for year one are included the startup costs, as the team was referencing. So for the budget request for the coming 9 months, it includes the continuation of the Cross Creek location and then expanding into Fort Braden.
Right, to one other location, which is still, without the credit, is $1.1 million for 9 months. Or $1.5 million in total for Cross Creek and Fort Braden over a 12-month period if we ended December 31st of 2025, correct?
Yes.
That is a large commitment of our budget. That's a big piece of our budget if we're looking between $2.5 to $3 million a year for 4 sites. That's a significant investment. Significant.
It is. We did base this on the CPS model. That does involve the engagement of team members in order to be able to do the outreach into the community, connect with the community providers, and really be able to leverage and coordinate the resources needed at each center. It also does include facility costs that are not included in a community partnership school budget. We do have planned dollars for activities on site as well.
Yeah, I don't see anything about renovations, remodel, rent, if someone else owns a property and things like that. I don't see any capital items in this budget though, unless I'm missing something.
So this is not the detailed budget. We can provide that detailed budget to all the council members subsequently. This was just meant to be the overview to start the conversation.
Okay.
I can provide that.
Go ahead.
So I'm gonna try very quickly to give sort of an historical perspective from a guy who March 23rd, 2023 sat at Pineview Elementary as $4 million was being proposed in our budget long before CHS entered. And I was like, I'm sorry, what's a family resource center? I don't feel comfortable voting on this. Fast forward, I make a visit to the Sable Palm Community Partnership School and blown away impressed, and begin to understand sort of the concept and also understand that each one of these family resource centers are going to be unique based on the needs of the community that they're trying to serve. And it starts to get a little more comfortable. Then we put an RFP out on the street and we get some responses back. I read them, I'm like, oh my God, no. I'm not comfortable with this. I'm not sure that anybody really understands what I think we were looking for. And but I'm not part of that process. And the evaluation committee doesn't even let it get to the negotiation committee. They recommend that we can everything. Okay, so there's gonna be no family resource center, but then it's the idea is, well, no, maybe we just need to put out a new RFP and make it a little more clear what the national model calls for and ask those who are going to respond to be a little more specific as it relates to the national model. And we do, I think, a much better job of articulating what we are looking to procure. 2 responses come back, one of which is Children's Home Society. I'm not sure if I made the good decision or the bad decision to raise my hand and say I will sit on both the evaluation committee and the procurement and the negotiation committee, but I do. We sit through the evaluation and I really struggle with the answers that are provided by both Children's Home Society and Whole Child Leon. And do they respond to what that national model is? But I am persuaded by a very smart woman from Alachua County who runs one of these, whose name is escaping me, but a really brilliant woman with passion and energy. And I was persuaded to move it to the negotiation committee, knowing that I was on that one and I could further evaluate. I was like, okay, let's continue this misery that I've evidently set myself up for. As we sat through that negotiation committee, it became clear that we weren't ready to spend the $4 million. And the negotiation committee made a recommendation. And that was, let's do this. Oh, one of the proposals in the final procurement was from Whole Child Leon that said, we have a site that is ready. We have space at Whole Child Leon that we could stand up from sort of an administrative office to get kind of all our ducks in a row and hire staff and get people out on, in the community. And that is where this idea of a just add water and stir site came from. And we selected this site for a couple of different reasons. One was that just add water. Two, it was not directly part of the community, but it was close to a lot of communities. There was a bus stop directly across the way. And here was the other most important thing. And ladies, close your ears for a second, although it is public record if you listen to that committee, we felt much more comfortable with the capable staff of the Children's Services Council providing a watchful eye on what was happening. And there was going to be cooperation and coordination. This was never really thought of as the ultimate end-all be-all site. It was sort of like the Whole Child Leon. Let's stand it up. We have an administrative office. Let's go ahead. As long as we're here, let's go ahead and start taking some families. I have to tell you, again, I didn't think any families would show up. I'm sort of stunned by these numbers and by the recordings of families that are here, because I truly didn't think anyone would come. What I did believe is what you all are proposing, and that there is one site, and this is to Mr. Johnson's point, there is one site. And I think only one site that is ready and has a strong need, and that is Fort Brady. I driving out there for that meeting that we as a council had, or we were invited to. I drove out there. I'm not embarrassed to say that I don't frequent Fort Brady because that's a drive. I was like, who comes out here? And I found out that you get out of there's nothing between here and there. Right. So yes, it needs resources, right? So it made sense, and that community is so cohesive. It's remarkable. I don't know what the magic answer is at all. Okay, so that's where we are. Sika. We could continue the exact contract that we're on. We have money left over. We could go through December 31st, 2024. We could agree to extend just the Cross Creek contract through our fiscal year, so September 30th of 2025. we could have that number. We could continue to evaluate how things were going. I do not want to lose momentum in Fort Brayton. I don't. I think we will be failing ourselves if we do, because that's the community we need to be in. But if we, and this is getting to Commissioner Cummings' point, if we collect all the data through December 31st, 2024, or even January 31st, 2025, there's nothing that would preclude us from saying to the Children's Home Society, okay, we got the numbers that made us comfortable. Go for it, Brayden. Like, continue the conversations. I'm thrilled that the county is putting money into renovating. It seems to me the answer was 0 to the rent. Continue the conversations with the partners that you all have. Continue to kick butt here and shock me again as the numbers come in. But there is nothing that, by the way, in our budget, if you remember, that money is set aside. So it sits sort of in this status of unusable, because it is meant for this purpose. And so the money is there. We're not using it for anything else yet. Yeah, so am I right? I mean, we could at any point decide we're ready for expansion now, even if everyone in this room is not comfortable with expansion today.
You absolutely could. May I add just?
Yeah, oh, yeah.
Okay, so first of all, your recount was excellent. That is the exact history of how we ended up here, how we got here. The contract for the incubator was very specific on what their deliverables were. And so from my estimation, if you go to page 10, you will see 3 of those big deliverables, which was the community engagement and the number of drop-in neighbors, the Cross Creek member families, and then the Cross Creek and Fort Brayton advisory council members. So when you look at the first one, the goal was 150, they've exceeded that, it's at 193. When you look at the second one, the goal is 40 member families, they're at 19 with a contract period end of December. So they're on track to meet or exceed that goal. And then the last one, the goal is 18 members for those community advisory councils. They've exceeded that at 19. So when you look at the current contract, they either have exceeded or on the road to exceed that. So that would be the first thing. The second thing is, I think, to the point, when you look at the work that they've done, yeah, this is not the most ready community. And I think that is to Mr. Johnson's point. The most ready community would be Fort Brayton. And then the last thing I will say is, even in this incubator, because they are not fully staffed in accordance to the model for an FRC, a lot of the outreach work has had to be done by the 2 staff people that are here. There is not an intake coordinator, which goes to doing that full assessment on families and people that come in. And so if I had to give an opinion, my proposal would be to allow them to fully staff the center, which then gives them the intake coordinator position, gives them the full-time base position, so that they can really do the work that is encompassed or that is contemplated in the standards that we put in that contract. And then nextly,
You made that.
next, no.
Yeah.
Stop it.
Hold on, Wexter. No, it still did.
Don't stop.
My mother, right. Next, keep in mind that we have a December meeting at which we would have more information. And you can look and decide if you want to expand then. If you don't want to do it then, we've got a January. You don't want to do, so I think we have time. One thing I tell our team all the time is that our timelines are man-made. They're man-made. And while we want to make sure we're doing good work, we also want to make sure we're doing it in a prudent and judicial fashion. So that is my input.
Secretary, I will forever call you Secretary Marstiller. Ms. Marstiller, can I add one more point that I failed to mention? So as you know, we're up screaming with the pom-poms, oh, Fort Braden is the right answer. Here's the thing, my gut told me Fort Braden was the right answer prior to us entering into a contract. We now are certain of its readiness because of the contract we entered into with Children's Home Society. So that is also work that has been done. We found out this was the second most ready. Ironically, it was never part of the original RFP at all. But we found out that we're kind of in this weird spot that's number 2 on the list. So we have gotten other deliverables from the contract, and whether it's, again, I am sensitive to spending money where we know we're going to get results. And while I really am incredibly impressed with everything you guys have done, I understand the hesitancy to say, well, it's like drunken sailors, let's throw a little bit more over here, you know, and just tapping the brakes to maybe December when we have more of a, okay, I'm sorry. Ms. Marstiller.
Thank you. This discussion has been really good for me as a new member, hearing the history, hearing everybody's views. I did also have the opportunity a couple of weeks ago, I guess, to ask some questions of Children's Home Society folks. So a couple of thoughts. One, I love the Family Resource Center concept. I think if we are able to do the thing that the council envisioned when we put the ITN out and or whatever it was, if we're able to do that, that's 99% of what this council exists to do. And we help some other organizations build them up, they can provide services, and we have moved Leon County way down the field, frankly, into the end zone. Hate to use sports analogies because I don't do sports. So
Neither do I anymore.
And rightly so, my friend. Although your tailgating thing is legend. So that's number 1. Number 2, I have every confidence in this organization to get all of this done and to do it right. Every confidence. 100%. I think that where we are right now is we are learning what we didn't know. Like, we didn't know what we didn't know. And now we know some things about what it actually takes to get a community ready for a family resource center, what it takes to put one, to stand one up, et cetera. And so I think we would be doing our communities a disservice if at this point, for whatever reason, for right or wrong, the decision was made to create the incubator here, and I'm going to talk about that verbiage in a second. We would be doing this community a disservice if we don't support this particular location to get it to where it is a fully functioning family resource center, whatever that looks like. And by the way, Children's Home Society people, we need for you to tell us what that looks like, okay? When I hear, well, we want to provide more services and we want to expand, I'm not hearing any specifics. And I'm not hearing how the services you want to provide align with the needs that you are assessing from the community. That's what we need to see. At the end of the day, that's what the Family Resource Center, if it's 100% fully functioning, needs to do. The other stuff sounds good, but, right? So I think we would be doing our community, this community, a disservice if we don't continue to financially support this location into, what would I call it, maturity. So let me back up. Incubator and pilot, two different things. If we want to use this as the incubator, this is the idea place. This is where we try and error and blah, blah, blah. That's fine if that's what we want to do. But I don't think that's what we want to do. I think what we want is a mature family resource center here so that we can learn the lessons that we need to learn, and then we create the remaining three, right? Fort Braden, they appear to be, rocking and rolling. My hope is that in advance of a decision to do or not do, that we have not created an expectation in the minds of the people in Fort Braden. Okay, because that would be problematic for all of us. Okay, so what I am hoping to see, or what I need to hear in order to say, yeah, let's do a little bit more. What I heard today was they are super duper ready, they're gung ho, they're ready to go, but there aren't any resources. So I'm not sure what a family resource center would be doing just yet. I'd like to see some plans about, okay, here are the resources that we have brought in to help folks in the meantime, and then we're ready to stand up. Technically a family resource center, which I am, again, 100% supportive of, but I would want to see some steps or what's the word I'm looking for, milestones from y'all on what that's going to look like, and then more still community engagement in the other two communities. But I'm going to go back around to my initial comments, which is that I fully support the Family Resource Center concept. And I think if we do this, maybe we can't accomplish it in 5 years. Maybe it's a 7-year thing, but we got to do it and do it right. Whatever that takes. Let's not rush it, but let's not hold the reins too terribly tight, because I think that stifles the innovation, that stifles development, and at the end of the day, it probably is a disservice to our community members who are in need. And I'm done.
And I want to go back to the other, because we're already, which one's Macon and Griffin Heights? Right, so we're already doing those community outreach pieces as well. And look, Fort Braden, Macon, Griffin Heights, there are others that are deserving of family resource centers. We know this. It's just we want to make sure when we do it right. We don't rush into creating 4 and not doing any of the 4 well. We know what we're doing before we start expansion, right?
Exactly.
Go ahead, Mr. Grant.
I 100% agree. If we're really going to impact lives, we have to start with the families and the home environments. That's where we get to the 0305. That's what this is all about. That's where we're going to have the biggest bang for the buck. I'm encouraged by what I've seen. I am encouraged. I think we're making progress. But maybe we are learning through this process. Maybe we're trying to figure out what this needs to look like in order to be the most effective stewards of this resource, of this activity. That being said, I do think that we have more to learn here. I think there's more resources, as we've kind of alluded to. If we're really going to stand this up, if we're going to do it and do it right. And we did decide to do it here, whether we call it a pilot or well, it's an incubator. It really was to keep our eyes on this to make sure we learned and grew and recognized and kind of helped to shape it. I'm gonna go ahead and make a motion just to keep things moving. Can I make a motion?
We're not voting on it.
Okay, not a motion, but I will tell you, I do think that there should be some consideration to expand the resources in this site to be the most effective. Because if we're handcuffing it now by not giving it the resources it needs, then shame on us. Because we're not going to learn, and we're not really giving the people here the credit. And as we move into different areas of the community, the lessons we learn here are going to be what drives success there. And if we don't allow ourselves to do that, then we're not doing what we're supposed to be doing. So that being said, I'm encouraged. I do think we need to invest here. I think the assessment process is very strong, and I think that it's yielding really good information. I think it will guide us as we do expand, but I think there's still stuff we have to learn here.
Yeah, that's it. Just one follow-up question from what the director indicated about not being fully staffed here. The budget that we've approved for this location does it not include fully staffing? Because I know you said it's only 2 people trying to.
Right, it didn't include intake coordinator position and then all of the faces except for the one here at Cross Creek are part-time.
So the proposal that's in our packet that we will vote on next week, if approved, that would include funding to fully fund this
Right,
location.
and so part of that recommendation was expanding the staff here to be fully functioning with the intake director. And then it was also contemplating full-time for those faces in all the communities so they can really get out there and do all that work. I think, if I may, from what I've heard, from what I've heard, where I think it sounds like to me the council is going, we can go back, have CHS go back and look at this budget, contemplating fully staffed here. And then whatever would be providing the right information for a possible expansion. So I don't know if that's fully staffed. I'm not really sure. I would want to go back and talk with them about that, given the conversation we had.
Well, next week.
Yes, thank you.
And maybe, Johnson, I'm sorry.
That's fine. This is more just of a question because I went back and looked at some of the National Family Support Network information. And they talk about in standing up these family resource centers that other family resource centers have taken advantage of different federal funding sources. So I'm wondering if there's been any consideration within CHS of being able to develop funding sources for these FRCs that would go beyond us being the sole source bank.
Tara, do you want to take that or do you want me to take that?
Maybe we can tag team. I can start. So yes, we actively are involved in the national conversation. There is currently no dedicated funding source federally for family resource centers. The conversations now involve advocacy to include and define family resource centers within the Title IV-B dollars, the federal dollars that currently are used to fund prevention services in Florida, because each state uses those services in different ways. So some states have already moved forward to use those funds to fund the family resource centers. Here, those are currently contracted through the Department of Children and Families out to the community-based agencies for child welfare. And so it looks a little different for us in Florida. Yes, we are actively looking to see where there are opportunities, but as of today, there are no federal opportunities in Florida for family resource centers because those dollars are.
Certainly, and the literature that was out there acknowledged the same things, but it implied that there were family resource centers gaining access for certain of these federal funds for layers of the services that were
Yes.
being provided that were germane to the grants that. Okay.
Oh,
Say one thing.
Go ahead, Anna Kay.
Yeah, I want each council member to know, rest assured, CHS knows exactly what they need to do with these community resources. We have 34 community partnership schools throughout the state. When I started Sable Palm 6 years ago, I started at the ground level. We were school number 12. It has been 5 years that we had almost tripled the amount of schools that CHS has. We know this work. This work is exactly what we need to do for this. This is a dream for the community to have. When you talk about what resources are that we bring out there, so many options. We're the conduit to bring resources out there. It might look like a referral system, or it might be have the Bond Dental Bus come out there and be able to serve people on site. It's about getting our van out there. It's about getting them to the communities to bring food for those food disparities, hygiene products, diapers, whatever the community needs. But rest assured, CHS knows exactly what they're doing. And if we, by any stretch of the imagination, came across today that we don't know, shame on us.
That is not the case.
I mean, I'm passionate about it because it's like.
Anna Kay, we already know.
Yeah, but I'm passionate because starting Sable Palm 5 years ago, there was nothing. There was nothing. It took a year of trust. It took a year of questions that you guys have. I respect so much your questions because we have to build that trust with you guys, right? You have to be able to say, when we come back in a year from now, and we will, it's going to be a no-brainer because we're going to be working together to make this happen, to stand this up for the community. These resource centers are a dream for these nonprofits because they are dying to have places where people are going to be coming together and gathering together to provide services. I mean, it's a no-brainer. A community partnership school happens to be fortunate because it's in the school system with the kids around it, but this is almost so much better because it's not just focusing on that school and that nucleus, right? It's focusing on the entire community and bringing them in. So I'm sorry, I'm really passionate. Yeah, I kind of get because when you holding up progress, and I loved that you said that because we have to kind of always the culture of yes. So we have that in community partnership school. How do we get to that yes? We have barriers all the time. We put a dental clinic on Sable Palm. I got so many no's that I was oh, absolutely not, because I'm going to keep working towards that yes. So no's happen all the time, but we're going to be working towards that yes, and hopefully alongside you guys.
So if I can just jump in, because it's also a little after 6, we got one more, council, we have one more thing we want to review. On the funding thing, on the funding issue, so the state of Florida itself, we were notified earlier in the year that the legislature has begun to notice family resource centers throughout the state and the effect that they're having on our families. So that is a conversation they're even having as, if there is state funding that can be put in. That being said, with session coming up and us having this family resource center right here, it's an opportunity for them to see one here in the backyard, for sure. The second thing I do want to be sure that we are clear on, family resource centers are different from community centers. And while the concept of the CPS is the same, it's still a little different because with the standards, we want to make sure that we are adhering to the standards. And I do believe that CHS has a very good grasp on what those standards are and how that works into the establishment. So I do.
So, with this remaining balance, it shows you would have spent less than 50% of the money that we allocated. So could that money not have been used to fully stand up this facility?
They started late. We started. Yeah, we I believe had an April 1.
Right, but if I'm saying that money's there, it's already been approved.
Absolutely.
It could be potentially.
It could be, absolutely.
And I'm gonna go down this journey with you, and if we think as a council, because I have a lot of respect for everyone in this room. Although I'm not there, some of you seem to be there, that the importance of these family resource centers. And if we deem that 25 or 30% of our annual budget needs to fund these centers, then I'll go down that journey with you. But I think we need to make sure before we make that commitment that we know what we're doing by opening one very successfully before we open 2, 3, 4, 6 more, right?
And Mr. Chair, if I could make one final point, and that is, remember, this was when the procurement originally went out, it was for $4 million. And I was like, big small on the $400, $4 million. I'm just not comfortable. So that's, I am, regardless of which spot we ended up picking, again, recognizing this spot was picked for collaboration, cooperation, oversight, as we were contemplating spending so much money. And so that's how we landed here. I'm glad we created a little test case. Not necessarily incubator, not necessarily pilot, but just a little test case of how could things work and learn, right? The other thing is it relates to the budget and what you could bring to us next week. I would strongly encourage sort of a Chinese menu approach of Justice Resource Center. If we did nothing else, Justice Resource Center, or Justice Resource Center that's staffed a little bit more, or Justice Resource Center that's staffed a little bit more, but continues the conversation in Fort Braden. And then one more item, this is poo-poo platter. You gotta throw the egg rolls in, the other two communities, and continuing funding those positions. And so that when the council is deciding, we're not deciding, it's not all or nothing, it's because I've heard what sort of everyone's view is, so I kind of know where everybody's mostly leaning, but I think they're also, we're trying to be deferential to you, Sika, but Anna Kay, you and Kim as well. But I think everybody wants to try to get you what you need, but yeah. So the Chinese menu thing is, to me, attacking the budget.
The pausing to decide on Fort Braden would mean that we would stop right now. Right? So because we can't keep working towards something that we're not sure of necessarily that would be approved. So that, that's kind of like hearing that might totally stop.
Well, if I can jump in, I don't think that's what the council's saying. I think what the council's saying is come back with a budget that kind of fully outfits where we are. Look at what the faces are doing. Maybe it's moving the faces to full time so that you can continue to do that engagement. I don't think what we're saying is just stop, because I think there is still work that can absolutely be done as we moved in that direction. It just may not be as soon as this contemplated. That's all.
Yeah, I think I misunderstood because I didn't know if it was like that we're just gonna stay here.
No. I don't think that's what.
Think,
And correct me if I'm wrong.
I heard that.
well, how about this?
I would be, look, I am a champion of this program now. I cannot even believe I'm saying it, because I was like, it's one of those things, right? No, I'm not for it. But I do appreciate what everyone is suggesting, and that is, let's make this a success. I am hoping that Fort Braden, that in December, we have these numbers, and these numbers have grown, and we're seeing success that makes everybody comfortable. And then all we're doing is pausing Fort Braden in terms of the timeline. Like, don't start, a week from now when we vote for it, don't start that day. Wait, just wait and bring us back a little more information on how this is going. And yeah, because I've heard from everyone, again, one of the things we learned by contracting with you all is just how ready one site is. You know, and maybe if we didn't know then what we know now, and if we had, maybe we would have made a different decision and made Fort Braden our test case. But I'll tell you, by making Fort Braden our test case, I don't think that the 9 of us would have learned as much, and I certainly don't think that the staff of CSC would have learned as much. I think there's advantages to having done it where we are. Candidly, I'm just thrilled that we didn't kill this thing. Because, by the way, again, you can, if you really can't sleep and want to look at that negotiation committee, it was dead. And the only thing that sort of resurrected it was this concept of, let's really not throw this out just yet. Let's see if we can try it on a smaller basis, a one location basis that looked like the proposal from Whole Child Leon, which is not even what we accepted, but we liked that one concept. And see where it can get us so that we can learn and hopefully learn that the next stop is wherever it's going to be and we can make it successful.
Don't apologize. Don't you ever apologize. That's what we love about you. Failure is not an option, right? And I appreciate that. You won a lot of points with me because of that. Right? Yeah, no, really. And the people here believe in you guys. So don't stop. But we wouldn't be doing our job if we didn't question before we invest potentially millions of dollars and make this commitment. We would not be doing our due diligence. And if y'all think that Fort Braden is ready to be picked, and come back next week and pick it and move on. Okay? All right.
And I, Mr. Chair, just thank the presenters.
Yeah.
Your passion.
This is worse than being in front of the legislative.
Thank you.
You guys are a tough crowd, that's for sure.
Love them.
Thank you, guys. Thank you.
All right, so that will conclude that topic and we'll move now to youth development year-round out of school.
Thank God Mr. Jones is here. Holy moly.
Oh, my.
Like that. I know, baby. The way it's thank you all. Love you, Daryl.
Okay, so you received in advance our draft of the youth development investment and out of school time service provision. I am gonna turn it over to Holly and we're just gonna do a quick little overview and then hopefully you've read it and if you have any questions. The biggest thing to keep in mind about this is after we have done summer 22, 23, and 24, what we know is we cannot measure how our children are doing if we can't keep track of them year round. And so in those summer programs, you had different kids participating in different things. And while it got more stringent, this, according to all of our research and the numbers that we've gotten in and talking with other CSCs, is the better way to approach it. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Holly to give us a quick overview and then back to our chair to open up for any questions.
Perfect. Thank you guys so much. Hopefully you had an opportunity to review the statement of work, which is attached to the document. And you did receive that draft statement of work at the last council meeting. What you have kind of in front of it are in essence some questions and staff recommendations for how we could design a competitive procurement around this topic specifically. What we know and even evidence that we're seeing from the FRCs is that childcare is the #1 issue that no matter what neighborhood you live in, you're asking for. But it's not just early childcare, they're asking for that after school care as well. Even within our school readiness and our on-ramp program that we have, that school readiness is not just 0 to 5, it's 0 to 12. And so families are transitioning as they're receiving that ELC voucher, they're transitioning that to after school care that's year round. I Historically, across the state, amongst our sister CSCs, out of school time supports is one of the number one investments that they make, because they realize that when you invest 0 to 5, that's your biggest bang for your buck. But if you don't continue to provide supports as they matriculate into the school system, especially in that 3 to 6 p.m. or over the summertime, that those gains that you make early on could be lost. That's why this kind of this tripod approach of kindergarten readiness, family supports, and youth development programming really does serve the whole family, and that aligns directly with our theory of change. So in the budget, which I know will be before you more officially next week, there is a line item carved out for youth development programs that includes the summer learning programs. It includes the summer internship program, special needs scholarships, all woven into that line item. But as Director Green has pointed out, that what we are looking at is the ability to continue serving the same child year round. We know from our partners at the Department of Education that to run a summer program for 2 to 2.5 months costs about the same amount to run a year-round, a school year program. So the 7.5, 8 months that it costs to run an after-school program, in essence, costs about the same to run a summer program. So that's kind of what we are proposing, is that instead of doing a summer program like we've done for the past 2 years, that we still keep the same cycle. So the families that have come to know over the past 2 years that there will be available services would still have access this summer, but then it would continue on. So we're proposing for the service contracts that they are technically 13 months, because it's a 12-month contract that would be June 1 through May 31st with a 1-month startup. And that's how we would source the procurement. And the second kind of question is this idea of the amount of funds that are available, what a potential split would be. If we know we absolutely want to follow these children, we would want the majority of the funds going into year-round programming. But we also know that not all the kids, the need for summer programs is greater than the need for out-of-school time. So having a recommendation from the council on what that split might be. We've proposed 70-30, looking at the numbers and kind of crunching the numbers of where that might be could yield about the same number of summer learning spots that we funded this past summer. It's a little bit shy. If you'll recall, we funded about 900 slots. I think that we enrolled 902 by my last estimation, looking at the data. This would kind of fund slightly under that at around 870 for this summer. And then the majority of those 70% would continue on through year round. There's a host of questions that are kind of in here, but instead of me talking at you, I'd love to kind of pause and maybe take each item at a time and just kind of find out where you are on this investment and find out like how it would work. The thing I would love to point you to is item number 7. And that is, are there mandatory enrichment components that programs must provide? And this is what Director Green was referencing as we stepped up the expectations. This past summer was the first summer that we actually mandated use of the quality standards for after school and summer learning programs. And so kind of getting the provider field ready that this is what we expect. We had several programs that applied that did not even get to pitch their program because the program that they proposed, how they designed it, did not meet those standards. So they were thrown out. We want to take it another step further and say, you can't just say you're playing with kids. You can't just do a basketball camp. What's the enrichment component? And do you have curricula and a tool that is going to measure those changes? This past summer, we allowed the programs to kind of pitch to us what tool they wanted to use. And so that we could learn almost, dare I say, a pilot or an incubator. I'm not going to use any vote words ever again. But we wanted them to kind of tell us what tools they were already using. And now we have data that we can reflect back from this summer of which tools worked and which tools did not work. And we have that information, so as we move forward, if the enrichment component that you're going to propose doing is STEM, all STEM programs are gonna be measured in the same way. If you're gonna propose literacy, all the literacy programs are going to be done the same way. If you're doing character education, and likewise. So we've been able to call that out so that we have common metrics across programs, but that we're not setting a program up that does STEM to be measured with a character education tool, or a program that does character ed to be measured with a literacy tool. So we'll still allow some level of customization and be able to kind of dive a little bit deeper into how we're going to measure gains by each program. In addition, for those programs that will then, for the students that will then matriculate and be year round, we want to have other data collection points as well. Not just, was this program effective for the summer, but rather we want to collect report card data. It'd be amazing at some point to have an MOU directly with the school district that just transfers it right on over with a little push of a button. We're working on it. There's a lot of legalities there. But what we can do is what we know what other after school programs in our sister communities are doing, which is you participate in the program, you have to provide a copy of your report card. And they it's a form technically of self-report, but it is a scan of the report card that gives us some key data indicators. Their scores on all their 4 core subjects, attendance at their school, as well as any disciplinary actions, because it's all included on that report card. What we know of high quality after school programs and summer learning programs are most commonly associated with higher attendance rates at schools, which is something that our entire nation actually is working on in terms of absenteeism. We know that if they're engaged in a high quality after school program, they're less likely to have behaviors or engage in discipline or have disciplinary actions. And we know that they have better grades in terms of their coursework, calling the ABCs of high quality after school programs.
So we're at 6:23.
I know, I'm wrapping it up right now.
I don't want to keep everybody too much longer. I'm not rushing, but I don't want to.
So what you'll see in here, and so I just wanted to point out, that's items 7 and 9 are those that indicate how we would really focus in on proving that the programs are effective. So again, we're approaching this from a year-round perspective to try to gather meaningful data on the students that we would serve year-round.
I do want you to highlight 10 too. I'm sorry. Highlight 10.
Okay, and
Given
then
some recent conversation.
oh yes, so 10. There's a couple of so you might have heard of a program called the 21st Century Program. 21st Century, it's community learning centers, and there are several we call them CCLPs that are operating in this community, but they do not allow for food service. You can't use any of their funds for food service. So we talk a lot about what's an allowable expense or what's a disallowable expense, and keeping with this past summer, really wanted to focus in on allowing the funds to be used for meal service, which we're able to report and reflect back from this summer, how many kids attended, how many days, when and where, and how many meals were served, but not to allow our funds to be used for marketing and for advertising, because we held a very successful youth expo, and so we could help drive that. But if they wanted to use money for advertising, that they could use it through other means so that we could start that collective process and kind of manage some of that for them all. And also will not fund enrichment activities by service providers who have current or recent legal action against them. You may recall, no, I don't have to bring it up, but I'm sure that you all know what's going on with that. Not only would they not be eligible to apply for direct funding, but they would also not be eligible to be a subcontractor with a partner. And on that note, we also want to encourage collaboration amongst smaller programs. So that's also built in here.
Can I just follow on that last aspect about legal action? Does that mean legal action with the Children's Services Council or with any other entity or what? And how would we check for that?
There will be a self-reporting question. So in the RFP itself, you do report, and the question is, are you currently or have you been involved in any legal action?
And not just the Children's Services Council, but any other, okay,
Period.
okay.
And then for contract awarding, so when the contract is awarded, the awarded entity in that contract will agree not to subcontract with anyone, and that will be a part of their process as well.
Okay, can I follow up? So what if you have legal action against you, what's the criteria to determine your exclusion? Because it could be a frivolous lawsuit, it could be any number of things. So is it gonna be a blanket exclusion?
We
Or
have.
is it will we have,
We have a disclosure form that was provided by our legal counsel and that they are actually working on what that specific criteria would be, and we would include that. So with the council's discretion, I would bring that back from our legal team on what that language looks like, and then you can review it. I don't want to speak outside of the lane that I don't fully know, but I'd love to be able to bring that back, but we have requested what would that look like, as well as what are the terms, like when we say recent, is that 2 years? Is that
Right,
3 years? Is that
3 years.
15?
I would qualify that by saying.
You've got to be correct. So we have requested our legal counsel to provide.
Say based upon, I qualify it to say based upon legal advice or something like that. I wouldn't just leave it blanket like that.
Okay. It's great feedback.
Can you just remind me how much we budgeted annually in this space with up to $1 million, up to, what was it?
The first summer, what did we do? 1.7. The second summer, we were at we went over. So I think it ended up being like 1.7, 1.8. This budget, we're proposing
Way
1.8.
The whole youth development line is 3.75.
But it includes several programs.
Yes, it
Right,
does. So
but in this particular line item, of course you asked me that and I didn't.
That's okay.
I'm not telling the truth. I
I
didn't.
mean, we would include that in next year's budget, the exact amount.
I'll tell you exactly what
I
it is.
think it's 3.4 in the breakdown.
Hold on, I have it.
Okay.
I just looked that up, go ahead, Mr. Mitchell.
Yeah, I would just ask that under item 4, which entities are eligible to apply? And I don't care where we force this, but financial sufficiency, there's gotta be some sort of financial criteria, like you gotta have more than $1.37 in your checking account. Because here we are in a position that, and it'll come to the committee, but the financial committee met to make a recommendation on an entity that owes us money. Well, if they don't have 2 nickels to rub together, we're sort of up against a brick wall. So I'd like to know that if we're gonna award someone $250,000 and they don't, we've done this hybrid where we provide some funding up front and some funding at the end, that whatever money that we may have out there that's sort of in limbo, they got that amount of money in their checking account that if we sue them for not performing the second half of their contract, that there's money we can go after. So some sort of financial sufficiency. And again, I don't have any magic words, but as I read this, that's all I kept writing. Where's the money?
My question for you, Mr. Mitchell, would be, is it an eligibility requirement or is it something that's just scored? So currently, under the description of provider profile, it says financial stability of the primary applicant. Would you like to see it be more of a hybrid, or is it actually an eligibility criteria to just get your foot in the door to pitch?
Yeah, I don't really have a strong opinion on that. Because heck, we don't know what they're pitching and what sort of liabilities.
Risk assessment.
Yeah, I think I'll feel much better after we have this conversation next week in terms of the outstanding issue, but I'd like to know that if somebody owes me 60 grand that they have the wherewithal to get that 60 grand back.
Can I comment on point, Mr. Chair? Just,
Yes, ma'am.
I know we're a public entity, this is public funds, but is the requirement for bonding, is that something that we couldn't require? Is that something the general counsel could maybe look at for us, Madam Executive Director?
Absolutely. We also have not traditionally asked for 990s, but we could ask for that. We had not traditionally asked them to submit their 990s, but we can ask for that as well. And so that the RFP committee can look and see their, yeah.
I-
do that.
And what a great idea for, some sort of a performance bond.
Right.
I don't want to drive the cost up so much, but
Yeah, but I don't know who excluded, so if that's something the general counsel could
Yeah,
look at. Yeah, okay.
So we'll be sure make sure we have the self-reporting affidavit for next week's meeting, as well as information on the bond. I did want to answer your question, Mr. Hannah. So for youth development programs and out of school time, it's a total of 3.75 million. For the year-round out of school time and the summer programming, it's 3.24. For our expo, it's 10,000, which is our advertising and outreach. The summer youth internship program, 250,000, and then scholarships for special needs camps, 250.
and so I'm sorry, Mr. Johnson, I got sitting here.
You're on the
go car.
No. I think these are quick. You answered my first question, Director. Thank you. Would we have a demonstrated track record requirement for any of these providers? So when, you can write a beautiful proposal and say, if I receive your money, I'll be able to scale and provide these services. But, go ahead, that's fine. Go ahead.
So part of it is that these are not pilot projects. We're not funding pilot projects. That is one part of the requirements in their proposal design and how it would be, they're scored in their provider profile. We can of course strengthen that section so that it weighs higher. The idea, even thinking about that split, is that do we also want to allow for some grassroots programs that maybe don't have as much of a track record? Do we say that they can only do like those grassroots can only do summer? And when we did our family strengthening program, we did an interesting split where we allowed for only vetted evidence-based programs to get the bulk of the funds, but then we allowed for some emerging programs. I think SG Mental Health is a great example of that, where they're using the funds to kind of grow their program up based on some preliminary data and evidence that they had, but they weren't like I'm going to say an Oasis or a PACE Center for girls.
Okay, and my last question is, are we aware of other available funding sources for these potential providers? So as a council, we can be comfortable that we're not providing duplicative funding for the services. So I don't know what the funding streams are that some of these providers could be getting.
So we are aware of, locally in terms of funds, we know that there are investments coming from the United Way, the CHSP process, some city and county dollars outside of CHSP, but not a lot, as well as Community Foundation. At a state level, there are some drawdown funds that folks are accessing to serve through the funds they receive from the legislature. And then from the federal perspective, there are 21st century funds, and some out of school time programs are drawing down community development block grants, as well as some child care development block grant funds. So we would require them in their budget disclosure to show if they are receiving those funds and that they cannot supplant. And so we, our programs team has been very creative in looking at how they report their budgets so that we can answer that supplantation question far easier than what we've been able to do in the past. We've learned some lessons along the way.
I think the line that I'm trying to get to is that we want to encourage these providers to optimize those other funding sources and not just say, no, they're too hard, or I don't know how to do that. Here I am asking you. That doesn't meet the threshold of not being a duplicative service.
So
anyway,
if I could just add, what I will say is we have been told that we're pretty stringent when it comes to the application process for these funds. the one, the thing that Holly and Ms. McPhail just described, we want to ensure that that when they are providing their budget, they are showing us all of their funding streams that they already have. And they are demonstrating that there are no other funds available for this particular program. What we have done in the past is we have funded expansions of programs. So it's a program that is already running, may already have a funding stream, and with our funding, you're able to serve more children. So we are keenly aware of that, and I think that with some of the changes we're making in the budget, we should be able to very quickly determine whether a program would be supplanting funding.
Going to move to Mr. Mitchell and then Commissioner Cummings.
This 70-30 split, do we have a specific reason where we came up with 70-30?
So the rationale that when I was playing around with the numbers, I created a formula to try to maximize the number of summer slots to be somewhat comparable to what we funded this year. And it's based on, and kind of like this cost per child of around $2,400, which is based on some information that we've received from the Department of Ed.
So my only feeling on that, and that's what I thought I heard you say is, and by the way, you got
Gotta start somewhere.
You got to start somewhere. The reality is that if it's year round, we're sort of getting those kids anyway. I mean, if you look at the numbers, and if in fact we're changing this, and I support the reason you're changing it is because you don't want too much of a drop off. Again, I have no reason to say these numbers, but 80-20 sounds better to me than 70-30. I also don't want to lose the summer only kids, because there are kids that are already involved in programs, to Mr. Johnson's point, that are funded in a different manner. And really all they need is a summer program. And I don't want to lose those kids. And that is the reason I asked the question. I don't have a magic answer, but I don't know that chasing the number, that same number is the right way to go. I just, yeah.
Commissioner had her.
Oh, yeah.
Mr. Mitchell read my mind. My question was sort of centered around that split as well. And I've had some people in the community that have seen this come up to me and said, well, we think that the Children's Services Council is moving forward, doing away with summer funding altogether. So I just wanted to share that as well. Now, my other real quick question is, do we have an idea of the number of service providers that we expect to have with this year-round?
So you'll notice that we have, I will say, shrunk, I don't know, whatever you want to say, that we've been kind of going up, funding less and less each summer. This past summer, I think we ended up funding 11 programs over the summer in our enrichment line item, with a handful of others that were doing special needs. Based on the numbers, if I were a guessing woman, I would say it's probably would be a max of 7 or 8 programs.
For year round.
That would be for year round, correct. And to the first question about doing away with summer, we have not been shy in communicating with our programs about the intent of moving toward year round because of the data conundrum. We have to show that we are effective, and throwing money at summer programs is not going to tell that story. We can't base it on anything. There's no follow-up, there's nothing. And so we have to make a shift. How we want to make a shift is y'all's call. This is definitely that recommendation, but we have not been shy about it. But to Mr. Mitchell's point, and from feedback that we've received, there are other resources available for students for the school year that don't exist during the summer. So doing 100% school round, year round would eliminate opportunity for youth. And so 70-30, 80-20, wherever you guys want to land, Our recommendation is not to do 100%. Our recommendation is to have some sort of split, but that's ultimately your decision.
Thank you.
Just listening to this, I mean, I think just, qualitatively, summer programs are a little bit different, right, than year round. And my expectation for a summer program is gonna be different than an after-school, year-round kind of thing. Commissioner Cummings, you asked my question, so I'll move on from that. Thank you very much. I know we've got a lot of, objectives at the end of the day and, development, whatever, that's pretty broad. But what is it, because I'm looking at the, components and the requirements and the accountability and all of that, but at the end of the day, what is it that we want our year-round programs to accomplish?
That.
I can't see that.
Sorry. Number 2, increasing school performance and reducing juvenile crime among school-age children and youth.
All right, so
wholeheartedly at that. And the other thing I'll point out with this is that not having high school programming in this. This is early intervention.
Early and middle.
Right. Correct, because that's really where it is. We start talking about the other stuff, which is over here, and that's increasing occupational skills, career pathways. Some of that might be in here, but that's more the internship program. So we want to be very focused on that.
Okay, understood. So when the entities that will be competing for the year-round programs, is our expectation that they're going to demonstrate to us that they are capable to do all of those things? Or a little bit here, a little bit there, we can only do, character building, but we can do it all. I mean, how are we gonna do the apples to apples comparisons?
So we want to be very, very careful to not ask a program to try to be all things to all kids. If you're a STEM program, be a STEM program. If you are a character education program, be a character education program. One of the questions we could ask of you is, would there be an expectation for them to hit 2 of the enrichment components or just 1 of them? And I think that that's a decision that you can make. One, there is evidence out there to suggest that all summer learning and after school programs, if they're following the quality standards that exist at the national and at the state level, if they're following them, then they'll have that character education and kind of resiliency built in.
Exactly.
So one could argue that we want them to do that and one of these other things, that could be an option. And if they do that, then there's going to be an expectation that they're measuring gains.
Right.
This past summer,
They will have to
They will have to
prescribe
but I think
they'll
that
have to
helps us move.
correct. And then we can say across all programs, we saw gains in these areas. And then for our STEM programs, we saw gains here. In our literacy programs, we saw gains here. That is 100% an option for the council to make. And they will have to do pre-test, post-test continuously. In addition, we are asking that there is what I'm going to call mandated consent, that that we are permitted to share their participation in our funded programs with the Department of Juvenile Justice to determine if they were ever became justice involved. This is something that some of the other programs have done and we've talked about it, but because it was short-term interventions that we were doing, it's going to follow up to say, oh, you participated in the summer program and then were you justice free for 6 months. It doesn't make sense to hold them to a standard unless they're continuously in their lives. So we'd like to mandate that they consent to share their participation. It's not that we would get details about an arrest record or any of that, but we would know, hey, these 10 kids are participating in program A. What percentage of them are free of justice involvement while participating in the program, or up to 12 months? I think that we're proposing just while they participate, maybe long-term. I'll look on page 6, I think it's in that, to see if they stay justice involvement free, stay out of the system. Because that is ultimately the goal, is that we are keeping these kids engaged, and off the streets 100%.
So one last observation. OST program design, this is on page 2 of the draft statement of work, item 12. The entity must be a licensed, license exempt, or working toward licensure childcare provider, or working toward licensure. These are children. What does working toward licensure mean? Does that mean background checks are gonna be done? What does that mean?
So there are many after-school programs that don't go through the licensure process or even the registration process with the department because it's very cumbersome, and oftentimes the requirements, especially for elementary programs, are actually for an early child care facility. And so they just don't do it, and there's not a carrot stick conversation unless they want to be receiving school readiness dollars or be eligible to receive school readiness dollars. If they want to receive those vouchers, they have to be licensed or license exempt and go through that process. But if you're a community-based program, and let's just say you're operating, I'm gonna pick on Leon County Schools for a minute. If you're operating at a Leon County Schools, you have no power, authority over the height of your toilets, for example. A lot of them will then just be like, oh, and then that's one of the requirements to get your license, your license to the department. So a lot of them just say, it's too hard, I don't want to do it. And they just will try to go someplace else. Instead of just, let's work with the department, let's work with the local community or wherever you're providing it to try to achieve licensure. So that's just one example. The idea also is for summer programs, there's legislation out there that says that all summer programs should be registered. Well, if you go online to the department's summer programs registration page, there's hardly any. You don't get in trouble until you get in trouble, right? If something happens at your facility and then they go and they discover you're not actually registered, then it's like you get a double whammy. It's like getting pulled over and you weren't wearing your seatbelt, right? That's how it's been, and we want to change that. We want to kind of, I guess, add a little bit of teeth. The department is there to do licensure and registration, but we do know that it's a long process. So there might be really great programs who haven't even contemplated becoming registered or licensed with the department. So what would that change look like? Some folks might say that it takes 6 months. I've heard from other people that it takes closer to 2 years, depending upon like how well staffed the department is in their office of licensing. So we'd like to see more be on that list, and we have the power as you have the power as the council to be that carrot stick conversation to get them registered and get them to go through the process.
So for the entities that would be working toward licensing or who have opted not to do that, is there, because licensing requires a level 2 background check, yada, yada, yada.
Well, that's already required.
Is it for everybody?
Anyone that we fund, anybody that's gonna be in our interface.
That's all I did. Okay, that's all I need to know.
Yes.
Thank you.
Yes.
My work here is done.
Great question.
Go ahead, Brent.
And this is a quick one. I didn't see anything in the information you provided us about geographic selections. Did I miss it?
Yeah, so it is on
The
number
population.
Is it number 5?
Number 5 on page 2.
Number 5 on page.
Is it number 5? Wait a minute. No, it's not.
No,
It's number 8.
I'm like, it's here somewhere.
It's number 8 on page 2. What are the
Yes.
child youth eligibility requirements?
All I wanted to make sure, and I don't need to read it and see it right now, I just want to make sure that we're correlating this with the investments that we're making on the Family Resource Center side. So if we're investing in communities, that we have carve outs for something around here, something maybe even that's carve out for Fort Braden at least.
You could shoot.
And that we don't over concentrate in one of the at-risk areas at the expense of any of the others.
We have historically we have said the majority, and I think this past year we asked for at least 60% be from that serve students from what we call them our targeted ZIPs. It's 5. It's 32301, 32303, 04, 05, 10, and there's one other.
But I think Brent is raising a really good point, and that is, it's easy to meet that criteria. Are we overwhelming the system at the expense of one that isn't getting it? You know,
We can bring that data.
has there ever been a program that we funded, summer program that we funded out at Fort Brady?
Yes.
Boys and Girls Club.
Okay,
Yeah. The only one that's out there
right.
is we're funding it.
And we opened, if you remember, our funding opened the Boys and Girls Club out at Fort Brady.
Right,
And they were able to take advantage of, is it youth mentoring?
It's the youth mentoring.
Youth
line.
mentoring to do some continuation out in that area.
Yeah, but I do think that's it. I don't know how you fix it, but I think it is such a great point.
We can, at the next meeting, provide for the 900 that we served this past summer, we can provide a zip code breakdown of where they were. I think that we can also do an actual heat map so that we might be able to even look at the specific census tracts. I don't want to overpromise and underdeliver. We can absolutely do zip codes, but we have the ability to have a heat map that we can show you where they all are located to kind of determine the ones that we funded at least this summer to maybe help make some decisions. And then you can decide with this, if you want to say 20% has to be from here, 20% has to be from here, and the rest can be or targeted zips or
a
not.
goal. I mean, I
Not to disqualify, but to.
right. I mean, if actually, you know,
Yeah.
you wouldn't possibly be over promising because you can just take a map of Leon County, get the address, and boom, a little goes
So
there.
we
goes
have
there.
that. I just want to make sure
Yeah.
that visually we're able to show it in terms of data security and all of that stuff. I think we absolutely can do some screenshots. Right now, when you log into SAMUS and we pull up our programs, we can go drill down exactly to the street address of every family we're serving.
But is it, are you looking for every address of the people we're serving or where the geographical location of
Other providers.
right, of the program?
So we can do both. What we have readily available and very easily available is where they reside, the actual families. Research shows, by and large, national research, state research, and from our sister CSCs that the youth go to closest to where they live. It's not where their parents work, it's closest to where they live. That location and price are the two highest driving factors, even well over recommendations of quality. So if it's close by and it's affordable, they're going there. Even if it's a bad program, they will go there because it's close by and it's affordable.
And we've given, I think, extra points if the program did transportation, so they went to targeted areas to bring kids to the program, or if the program's set up in the actual targeted areas. So their location would be in one of those target zip codes.
I like the idea of the provider, and also we can see the story told out if we see where the kids are coming from and going to.
Yeah, I wanted to say, I think that might be in the program design. But I'll make sure that stays in the program design in terms of bonus points for the actual location.
So as we kind of, I think, wrap up this, I want to just solidify some next steps. Ultimately, at the next meeting, you all will be looking for us to
Approve an RFP.
Okay.
That would be in line with the timeline that you see on page 4. This will allow us to do some informational sessions. I listed it here as capacity building trainings. This is expectations of the types of programs we want to see. Come to the trainings, abide by the trainings, and therefore when you submit your proposals, it should be exactly what we want. And then just when we would kind of close it down in January, so that gives plenty of time for them to plan. But then bringing this back to us at our governing council meeting, you'll recall this past year, we, instead of holding our March meeting during spring break, holding it a couple of weeks early to make some decisions so that these programs know, because spring break is when families choose where they're going, and that's when programs start filling up of what they're doing over the summer.
So there's been a lot of great comments tonight and on this topic. And I wanted to just make sure if the opportunity exists that if council members come up with other recommendations or suggestions after reviewing, they can email that to you, because that will then possibly assist with you having all of that and tonight addressed in the updated, right?
Correct.
And present that to us, so we might be able to move forward. Does
Yes,
that work?
that is correct. So what we would do.
And if I can interject, ideally sooner than later, because we will be getting everything posted for the next meeting tomorrow.
Well, okay.
So tonight, get your emails in.
Tonight, that's what it is.
Let's order
So-
dinner.
Okay.
That's why we provided it. to
Because
you.
remember, this meeting is a day early, so it's on Wednesday, not Thursday.
Tomorrow.
Yeah, we don't wanna be.
And you can also call me if, I mean, I guess most of you know by now that I pick up my phone when you call, and if I don't, I call you back. If you have suggestions and that you just want to talk through them, and then I can document it down so that the version that you'll see before you next week incorporates any suggestions or ideas that.
If you, okay, and I'm gonna bring that up is because I'm sure you have a timeline, and, you know, I think the last thing you want, which could happen, is if next week, right, if we're
Blow
still
it up.
questions, then
Right.
you're not gonna be able to, so
Right.
just, okay,
Which is what we had.
yes, okay, and, almost, everybody's gotta talk, I'm gonna get this subject to hand. This is technically like our first movement into like our new data collection, right? So that's exciting. And then the summer piece, we've been kind of saying data from the beginning. No other FRCs have a model where they're able to somehow capture data from some, it may not be the same, but I mean, there's gotta be some.
It's, so.
I'm not sure
I can understand. So to your point, most FRCs only fund year round.
Okay.
Many of them don't fund summer only. And when
You
they
mean
do-
CSCs?
See, what did I say?
Sorry, FRC. Sorry, I got very
I'm sorry,
confused.
CSC.
Which are you asking?
I'm in CSC.
CSC.
Yeah, most CSCs do year-round funding. They don't do summer only. And when they do summer only, they do it on a scholarship basis. So they'll have vetted programs and the scholarship, the family can apply for the scholarship, and then the scholarship can go to that vetted program. But they don't keep data about that. That's literally
Attendance, I
just
think is
filling
about
it
it.
out for the family.
Yeah.
Very similar to what we did for special needs.
I just, evolved to, and from this experience, that there are benefits from some of these summer programs that we have funded that the data was not, I won't use the word sexy, but the data was not, it wasn't, but there was still significant.
Yeah, we can tell you they
impact.
got fed. We can
Well,
do
and
a satisfaction. We
Yeah.
can do where they were at the beginning of the camp versus the end of the camp, but you also have to look at how long the camp was.
Sure.
You have some camps so this past summer, we mandated that the camp had to be at least 6 weeks long.
Yep.
At least 6 weeks long, at least 4 days a week, at least 6 hours a day, had to feed them twice, had to have an enrichment.
We've had some CSCs that are able to tell a little bit more of the story, but those ones, they have established relationships with I'm gonna say with their school districts to be able to track the families. We did not mandate so the parental bill of rights passed before we came into existence or around the same time. And so our older CSCs that kind of got grandfathered in, they have these relationships where they can just access school records. We can't do that without implied consent, or excuse me, explicit consent. Explicit consent. We can't do that. And so because of that, it's hamstrung us a little bit to replicate what our sister CSCs are able to do with some of their summer only programs. Jacksonville, the Kids Hope Alliance, what they determined was, we know that programs that kids who go to summer programs were better off in the fall than kids who didn't. And the kids who attended the summer programs in greater duration and dosage did better off than the kids who had lower duration and dosage. And that's consistent with national research on this topic. So there's it's not just anecdotal, it's real research, but we don't have the ability to prove that this in the same way because we don't have that established relationship with accessing school records.
Okay.
But this will help.
Okay, anything else on this topic?
Well, from a historical perspective of this council, if you remember, the only reason we funded summer programs was we had been in existence for essentially we had taken in tax dollars for a year. And we were nervous that the community didn't think we were actually doing anything. And giving children something to do during the summertime seemed like an important thing to us. And therefore, we decided to commit to, I think it was $1.25 million, maybe it was 1.3, whatever it was a quarter of the budget for that summer. But it then became, for many different reasons, the only thing we were funding. And so that's, while some people are nervous that we're gonna eliminate summer camps, there were others who were the people who were probably the biggest supporters of the establishment of a CSC, who believed we were turning into nothing but a summer camp program. So that's just, at least for the two of you, when we got going, we were only funding it as to do something.
Yeah. And coming out of COVID, so that was.
Yeah, there were so many
There were
different
lots
things
of
that
reasons
were
why
going
you
on.
all know that decision.
All right, great discussion. Anything else on that one before we move on? All right, thank you. Next meeting date and agenda items.
Next meeting date, October 16th, 4 p.m. It's our annual meeting. At that meeting, you'll be electing your new officers, which I think will be our same officers. There'll be some not programmatic, what's the word I'm looking for? Rudimentary things that we do at every annual meeting, following procedures. We have some adjustments to the bylaws that, and so we'll do that. Mr. Rowe will talk to you about the executive director evaluation. Hopefully you want to keep me around a little bit longer. That process will start. And so we'll move through. But we're gonna try to get you all of this information by tomorrow, because that one day is gonna make a difference. But it won't look much different than what you have.
Quick question. The nominations committee made the recommendation about the officers, so that was not sufficient. We've got to do it again.
You gotta exactly, well, not do it again, you just vote.
Just vote. We'll just have a resolution.
We already accept the recommendation. We did.
Correct. Now you have to
Accepted the
adopt the
recommendation,
resolution.
now you have to adopt the recommendation.
Oh,
At the annual
adopt the recommendation at the annual meeting.
Yeah.
Okay, and we
So
can
the-
present what the nominating committee proposed, right?
Exactly.
Okay, awesome. Thank you.
With that, I think
SIPs, you'll get a overview of
review on
summer.
SIPs and decide.
I'm a big
how you want
thumbs
that to
down,
look.
just in case anybody's wondering.
No, we haven't, we just paused it for that last
Oh,
one.
okay.
And we have some information to bring back and some suggestions if you want to move in that direction. Yeah,
Okay, 7 o'clock.
it is.
7 o'clock.
All right, and
With a smile on my
next week,
face.
we have some member comments. Any member comments?
We hope you found this helpful. I know it was long, but we hope you found it helpful. We're gonna try to do this so that you're not.
By the way, I found it very helpful, especially as related to the FRC. We needed all of that time. I think for all of us to hear what, I changed my view in the middle of it because of some of the comments that were made. So I thank my fellow council members.
Okay, we have all that. Adjourned.